2 hours ago, I was fixing spreadsheets while my boss breathed down my neck about some deadline. Then a cop walked into the office and said, "Yi Fei, come with us." My boss froze. My coworkers froze. I froze hardest of all. My brain started speedrunning every possible crime I might have committed. Illegal parking? Forgot to lock a shared bike? Nothing came up. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in a conference room at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Air conditioning blasting, jasmine tea steaming on the table, and across from me sits this bald, dark-skinned old man who looks exactly like the kind of guy your parents warned you about when they said, "Don't click suspicious links." His name is Light What, and he tells me, with a straight face and a British accent, that I'm the long-lost grandson of some prince named George, and a kingdom called Gamagela needs me to come back and sit on a throne. Gamagela. That name sounds like a spicy hot pot option on a food delivery app. Extra numbing, extra spicy, Gamagela flavor. I turned to Deputy Minister Hua, who I've seen on actual television, and asked him point blank if this was an international scam. Maybe they planned to drag me to some island in the Pacific, harvest my kidneys, and then make me call my family for ransom money. Deputy Minister Hua set down his teacup with a little ceramic clink that basically meant, "Shut up and listen." He confirmed the old man's identity. DNA tests matched. Royal genealogy checked out. Multiple agencies verified the whole thing. The government was vouching for this guy, which meant he wasn't a scammer. He was worse. He was telling the truth. I didn't celebrate. When something falls from the sky, you gotta check whether it's a pie or a brick before you open your arms. Fine, let's say it's real, I told Light. Your entire royal family is just me? My village chief has more relatives at his dinner table during New Year than your whole dynasty. Light explained that the royal family only had 2 heirs, King Henry and Prince George. George got lost in China during World War II and never came back. Henry spent his dying breath ordering people to find George's descendants. 3 years of searching later, they found me. A guy earning 6,000 yuan a month, splitting it between rent, utilities, commuting, and instant noodles. Lucky me. Then Light started listing the country's stats like a real estate agent trying too hard. 1 million square kilometers. Main island 2,000 kilometers long. 18 surrounding islands. The capital has a 4E class airport where wide-body jets can land. Not gonna lie, my ears perked up. That airport is better than the one in Suzhou. But then his voice dropped. The Central Highlands and Northern Plains are permanently covered in an unknown toxic fog. Excuse me, what? Over the past 50 years, the United Nations sent scientists, engineers, and security teams in there. Hundreds of them died. The aid program was shut down. Drones lose signal inside. Satellites can only see the fog layer. Nobody knows what's in there or where the fog comes from. I scooted my chair back half an inch. This wasn't a fixer-upper. This was a death trap with a crown on top. Light kept going. Population, 990,000, mostly huddled along the southern coast. Main income, fishing. GDP, about $10 billion. But, and here's the kicker, the kingdom owes Australia and New Zealand $9 billion in loans. I stood up. My chair screeched across the floor like it was also trying to escape. Thank you for your time. Goodbye. Light blocked the door. Please stay, Mr. Yi. Stay for what? I lost 200 yuan in wages coming here today, plus my perfect attendance bonus is gone. Your country has killer fog, 9 billion in debt, and apparently some adopted daughter running things as regent. Am I inheriting a throne or signing up to be a deadbeat with a target on my back? Light scrambled. The royal family has independent assets. That stopped me mid-step. Go on, he started talking fast. The royal family controls the main harbor, fishing companies, coastal land, the airport, commercial real estate, and a palace full of collected treasures from previous kings. National debt belongs to the government. Royal property is separate. Can I sell it? The king has supreme authority over royal assets. Even the stuff in the palace, you decide what happens to everything that belongs to the crown. Now we're talking. Back at my job, I'd spend another month making PowerPoints for a boss who might not even pay my bonus. Over in Gamagela, I've got a harbor, an airport, and a palace full of stuff I can liquidate. The toxic fog? Not touching it. The 9 billion in debt? Never heard of it. The regent princess? I'll figure that out when I see her face. I'm not going there to save anyone. I'm going to check the inventory. All right, I slapped the table. I'll go. But let me be clear. That fog zone is someone else's problem. Don't hit me with any royal duty speeches. Light pressed his palms together. Thank you for your mercy, your majesty. Don't call me that. Too much pressure. If your palace doesn't even have a water heater, I'm catching the next flight home. Deputy Minister Hua coughed and said the travel paperwork would be handled quickly. Then I remembered, I don't have a passport. Getting one normally means going back to my hometown, and even expedited processing takes 10 days minimum. Hua whispered something to his secretary. The secretary left the room. I took one sip of tea. The door opened. A brand new passport was placed in front of me. Less than 10 minutes. I flipped it open. The photo was my old ID picture. Dead eyes, messy hair, zero royal energy. I rubbed the cover with my thumb. Normally it takes weeks just to get a simple certificate stamped. Power really does make the bureaucracy move. Light asked if I needed to go home and pack. The embassy could arrange a car. Pack what? A few old shirts that aren't even worth the shipping cost? The computer belongs to my company. Let me check the assets first. I might need to come back and keep my day job. Light just stood there. I think he expected the new king to act, kingly. Instead, he got a guy treating his coronation like a trip to inspect secondhand goods. We walked into the hallway. Cold air hit my neck. Then another thought punched me in the brain. I grabbed the doorframe. Wait, after I become king, do I get to keep my Chinese citizenship? Deputy Minister Hua shook his head. China doesn't recognize dual citizenship. Once you're officially sworn in and take Gamajala nationality, your Chinese citizenship is gone by law. My heart dropped into my stomach. Come on. I've been paying into Social Security for 2 years. If it gets interrupted, that's a huge loss. And I just won a license plate in the lottery. Haven't even rented it out yet. What happens to my plate number? Hua paused for a long moment. Here was a 23-year-old about to inherit a 1,000,000 square kilometer kingdom, and his first worry was Social Security contributions and a car plate. It's the law, he said flatly. I leaned in and dropped my voice to a whisper. Rules are rules, but people are flexible, right? I've heard some folks quietly carry 2 passports. I don't tell, you don't tell. Who's gonna know? Hua's face turned to stone. First, hiding dual citizenship is illegal. Second, you're going to be a king, a head of state. Your coronation gets announced to the entire international community. It goes into diplomatic records worldwide. He raised his finger and pointed it straight at me. You're about to make international headline news, and you think we'd need you to self-report before we find out? I looked down at the passport in my hand. Then I looked at Light. Quick question. If I change my mind right now, is it too late to back out? Deputy Minister Hua didn't even look up. She shoved the fresh passport into my chest like a receipt I didn't ask for. You want to back out? Fine. Leave the passport. I glanced down at the cover. If I leave it, do I get to keep my citizenship? King and citizen? You've got a real nice imagination. Before I could negotiate further, the sound of high heels clicking down the hallway cut through the conversation. A secretary appeared with a young woman in tow, neat shoulder-length curls, dark business suit pressed like she ironed it with a ruler, and a walk that meant business. She stopped, nodded to the deputy minister, and hugged a folder to her chest like armor. Hua pulled the secretary aside. I wasn't supposed to hear what came next, but hallways echo. What took so long? And why'd you bring a rookie? The secretary's voice dropped to a guilty whisper. Minister, the moment everyone heard the destination was Gamajela, every department started dodging. Director Zhang from the North America and Oceania division couldn't escape fast enough. He dumped it on their newest hire, Little Zhou. Hua sized up the girl. Young, steady on her feet, but this was Gamajala, a country China doesn't even have diplomatic relations with, half the land swallowed by mystery poison fog, and a government drowning in $9 billion of debt. Sending a fresh graduate there felt like handing someone a parachute made of tissue paper. Hua waved her over anyway. Zhou, the job is simple. Go with Comrade Yifei. If he lands and decides not to take the throne, bring him home safe. I looked up. Something about that phrasing felt a little too much like a return policy. Hua paused. If he does accept the crown, she rubbed her temple. A Chinese citizen going abroad to inherit a foreign throne. This wasn't just unusual for the North America and Oceania division. The entire Ministry of Foreign Affairs had never dealt with anything like it. Handle it when you get there. Zhou Jining stood at attention. Mission accepted. She'd been on the job for half a month. Most of her duties so far involved photocopying, filing, and pouring tea. She graduated from Beijing Foreign Studies University with a combined bachelor's and master's degree. She did not enter the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to staple papers neater than everyone else. This was her first real assignment. Gamajila might be broke and dangerous, but it was still a country. She started walking, but Hua grabbed her sleeve and pulled her close. One more thing. Zhou turned back. Don't play hero over there. Flights and hotels. Reimburse at the North America travel rate. Follow standard procedures. As for extra national aid, personal funding, or filling any of their financial holes, Hua let the silence sit for a beat. The ministry has no money. Not 1 cent. Zhou held her folder, paused for 2 seconds, and said, understood. She'd actually prepared a whole stack of materials. Poverty nation aid case studies, infrastructure cooperation frameworks, emergency humanitarian supply request procedures. Apparently none of that was getting used today. I leaned against the doorframe and heard every single word. My guard went up another notch. If the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was slamming the aid door shut before we even left the building, Gamajaila's financial black hole must be the real deal. Touch it and you sink. Still, having a Chinese diplomat come along wasn't bad. With her in the picture, if Light and his people tried anything funny, they'd have to think twice about consequences. I stuck out my hand. Yi Fei, Zhou Jianing. She shook it, quick, firm, and hard enough that my knuckles ached. I pulled my hand back and adjusted my glasses. This girl was no decorative vase. Light bowed to Deputy Minister Hua with his battered old briefcase. Thank you for China's assistance. Hua didn't respond. She just waved at me like she was shooing away a headache. Stay safe out there. I nodded. Minister Hua, if I come back after my coronation, can I still use the Chinese citizen lane at customs? She turned her face away and refused to engage. Just go. The three of us walked downstairs and out the front door. August's sun hit like a frying pan. The asphalt outside the ministry was practically glowing. I stood there for 10 minutes, and my shirt was already soaked through the back. Light stood at the curb, checking his phone every few seconds. I tugged my collar open. Minister Light, did your car break down, or is it stuck on the second ring road? Light wiped sweat off his forehead. There is no car, Your Majesty. We are waiting for one. Waiting for what? I looked around the curb. No diplomatic relations means no embassy vehicles allowed in. Zhou Jianing seemed confused too. She'd studied diplomatic protocol. She had never seen a foreign minister standing outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sweating like a marathon runner, waiting for a ride. She was about to call the secretary when Light held out his phone first. Gamajila has no embassy in China and no official vehicles. I ordered a rideshare. The screen showed a DD order. Economy ride. Vehicle arriving in 3 minutes. I stared at the screen. No words came out. I figured there'd at least be a rented business van. Worst case, a black sedan to keep up appearances. My company's admin assistant books a Buick GL8 when my boss visits clients. But here we were, picking up a new king for his coronation, and the country's own foreign minister was standing on a sidewalk, ordering the cheapest rideshare option available. Gamajila's finances were even uglier than what Light described in that conference room. The secretary jogged down the steps, phone raised. The rideshare has been cleared through. Almost here. A white Nissan Sentra rolled up with its hazard lights blinking. The door had a rideshare platform sticker on it. The body had a few mud spots nobody bothered to clean. I stared at the car and massaged my temples. There was a Sichuan curse phrase climbing up my throat, but I swallowed it back down. Riding to my coronation in this thing wasn't impossible, technically. The problem was, if they're cutting corners on the very first pickup, what's left in the palace? Light opened the rear door. Miss Zhou, please. Zhou got in first. Light took the other side. That left me riding shotgun. The future king, in the passenger seat of an economy rideshare. The AC was cranked. The car smelled like cheap air freshener. The driver was a guy in his 40s, buzz cut, towel draped over one arm. He confirmed the destination and pulled out. Capital Airport? Yeah, catching a flight. Step on it. I clicked my seatbelt. We merged into afternoon traffic. A few minutes in, the driver couldn't hold it anymore. Buddy, that building we just left. That was the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, right? Yep. I usually don't even dare take orders near there. The old gentleman in the back. What's his deal? I leaned back in my seat. Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Gamajila. The driver's foot slipped. The car lurched forward before he caught it. A minister? He checked the rearview mirror, eyeing Light. My car really made it today. Picked up a foreign minister. I can brag about this to the fleet for half a month. Light sat ramrod straight and gave the driver a polite nod. The driver glanced at Zhou Jianing next. Dark suit, folder, perfect posture, just walked out of the ministry building. And this young lady, she's important too? She's from the ministry, I said. The driver nodded, then gave me a full scan. Head to toe, pilling plaid shirt, jeans washed until the blue turned white, beat-up sneakers. Everything about me screamed, intern dragged along at the last minute. And you? Translator, no. Outsourced hire for the ministry? I was about to answer when Light couldn't take it anymore. The old man leaned forward from the back seat, both hands gripping the headrest in front of him. Please mind how you address him. The driver blinked. Light delivered the next line in flawless, perfectly enunciated Mandarin, one syllable at a time. This is the king of the kingdom of Gamajila. The car went silent. The AC vents kept blowing. Zhou Jining turned to look out the window. Her shoulders were shaking. The driver gripped the steering wheel. He looked at Light in the rearview mirror. Then he looked at me in the passenger seat. The traffic light ahead turned red. He hit the brake, pulled the handbrake, and twisted around to stare straight at me. He held it for 5 full seconds. Long live the Emperor, and you're riding economy rideshare too. That line from the driver hit like a truck. Long live the Emperor, and you're riding economy rideshare too. I adjusted my glasses and kept my composure. Undercover inspection tour, my friend. Keep it low-key. The driver laughed and stepped on the gas. The Nissan Sentra merged into second ring road traffic, heading for the airport. I closed my eyes and let the cheap air freshener assault my nostrils while my brain did math. 1 million square kilometers for airport, royal docks, fishing companies, coastal land. If Light wasn't feeding me fake brochures, this deal had potential. As for my office computer, I'd courier it back. Resignation letter? My boss could sit there and wait for it to write itself. 40 minutes later, we pulled up to the VIP terminal at Capital Airport. The driver turned around. Your Majesty, we have arrived. Watch your step getting out. I pushed the door open and August heat slapped me in the face like a warm dish rag. Light finally remembered he was a foreign minister. He walked ahead, pulled out a gold-stamped diplomatic ID from his briefcase, and suddenly the ground crew was treating us like actual human beings. 2 attendants appeared out of nowhere, guided us through a private security line, and led us into a lounge. White leather sofas, black and gold marble coffee table, a real espresso machine sitting right there. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a silver Gulfstream G550 sat gleaming on the tarmac. I stood by the glass holding a black coffee and finally felt my blood pressure drop. Now this looked like how a head of state should travel. Your Majesty, that is our chartered jet, Light said, appearing beside me. Direct flight to the capital, Burad. Every drop of coffee in my mouth launched onto the napkin. I coughed, wiped coffee off my chin, and stared at him. The capital is called what? Burad. B-U-R-A-D. I set the cup down. Gamajila. Burad. This country's naming committee needed to be fired. Every single name sounded like a menu item or a curse word. Very unique names, I said, tossing the napkin in the trash. Hope the royal assets are equally unique. The lounge doors swung open. An airline manager walked in wearing a Navy uniform, carrying 2 contracts, followed by a finance person holding a card reader. The manager bowed to Light. Minister Watt, the aircraft has completed pre-flight checks and is ready for departure. However, the charter fee needs to be recalculated. Light nodded. We agreed on a 50,000 yuan supplement. Swipe my card. He dug into his briefcase and pulled out a badly worn MasterCard black card. The edges looked like they'd been through a war. The finance person punched in the amount and handed the machine back. I was standing half a meter away. One glance at the screen and my hand shot out to grab Light's wrist. Hold on. Why does that say 100,000? Light froze. He turned to the manager. Wasn't it 50,000? The manager flipped to the last page of the contract. 50,000 for the outbound leg, correct. But Gamajila has no return passengers. After dropping you off in Burad, the plane flies back to China empty. The original quote didn't include that cost. He slid the contract forward. Fuel, crew, and wear for the empty repositioning flight, another 50,000. Total 100,000, due today. He paused. If payment can't be made, the aircraft will be reassigned immediately. It's peak season. The crew can't wait. The lounge went quiet. I turned to look at Light. He was holding his card. He hadn't entered a PIN. Sweat was rolling down his face like a broken faucet. Card's empty. His throat bobbed. I only have 50,000 on it. I leaned back into the sofa and crossed my arms. Didn't Anya send you money? She's the regent queen. She can't come up with 50,000 yuan? Sell 2 fishing boats and you've got it. Light hung his head. Call her, I said, pointing at the international phone on the table. He didn't move. Call. His voice came out dry as sandpaper. Princess Anya can't produce the funds. The National Treasury can't release even $1,000 US. Last month, Government employees' salaries were only paid because they sold the last few oil paintings in the palace. I stood up. No treasury money. Palace selling paintings to make payroll. $9 billion in debt. And a northern fog zone that eats people alive. Back in the conference room, Light told me the royal family owned docks, land, companies, and art collections. But right now they were hawking paintings just to pay salaries. How much of those royal assets was actually left? Had they been mortgaged? Had Anya already sold everything off? What if I fly over there and inherit an empty title, plus a $9 billion invoice? I stuffed the passport back in my pocket. Sorry for the trouble. I headed for the door. I'm going back to work overtime. Whoever wants to be king can have it. Your Majesty. Light hit the floor. Both knees. And then he bear-hugged my shins like I was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. The airline manager and the finance person both froze with their mouths open. I looked down. Let go. The kingdom needs you. He squeezed tighter. Princess Anya is stubborn, but she's been holding things together for years. You are the only confirmed bloodline of the Shuri family. Only your return can give the kingdom a backbone. Can a backbone pay the bills? I tried pulling my leg free. Couldn't. Am I inheriting a throne or enrolling in a poverty relief program? Let Gio. From the corner of my eye, I caught Zhou Jianing sitting on the edge of the sofa, palms sweating through her slacks. This was her very first diplomatic assignment. If I walked out now, Gamajila's succession plan collapses, and whatever fragile thread of contact between China and this country snaps with it. Her mission dies in a VIP lounge. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a leather wallet. Inside was a Centurion black card, the kind that doesn't have a spending limit. Deputy Minister Hua's words echoed in my head. The ministry has no money. Not 1 cent. Don't personally fill anyone's holes either. But this wasn't aid. This was, get the guy on the plane first, argue later, money. She pulled the card out, about to hand it over. Then I sighed. One long, heavy sigh. I stopped at the door. I looked back. A 60-something foreign minister on his knees, clinging to my ankles, having spent his entire personal savings to bring me here. A brand new diplomat ready to swipe her own black card so my sorry self could get on a plane. If I let Zhou Jianing pay this bill, I'd never be able to show my face again. Anywhere. In any country. On any planet. And honestly, Gamajila might be a dumpster fire, but the land was real. 1 million square kilometers. Even if only a fraction of it was usable, it was worth more than my office cubicle. High risk, high reward. 100,000 yuan. Think of it as buying an entry ticket to the casino. All in. Let go of my legs. Light looked up. I walked back to the sofa, dropped into it, dug out my China Construction Bank savings card from my inner pocket, and slapped it onto the marble coffee table. Swipe this one. I stared at the airline manager. 100,000. Do it. Light was frozen on the floor. Zhou Jianing stood there with her black card still in her hand, not moving. The manager picked up my plain, scratched up savings card, and looked at me one more time. You're sure? What are you looking at? Password is 6/8. The finance person took the card and slid it into the machine. The screen popped up. Enter PIN. The POS machine beeped. My phone buzzed. The balance notification had lost an entire digit. I tilted my head back and stared at the ceiling. I am officially the #1 clown on the entire internet. The guy who paid to become king. The biggest fool on the internet. Feeling lasted about 20 minutes. Then the private jet food showed up and my grief turned into hunger. Australian M9 Wagyu. Caviar. Australian lobster. And a bottle of Romani Conti just sitting there like it was no big deal. My mood improved. At least this Gulfstream G550 didn't downgrade me to instant noodles just because I paid with a construction bank debit card. I picked up the knife and fork and shoved a massive chunk of beef into my mouth. The 100,000 yuan was gone. Non-refundable. The only logical response was to eat it back. If I didn't, my chest would physically ache when I tried to sleep tonight. I checked my watch, then looked at the spread on the table. Flights several hours long. That means I need to eat back at least 10,000 yuan per hour. Zhou Jianing looked up from her tablet. What are you calculating? Cost recovery. I cut another piece of beef. My old boss made me optimize resource utilization every single day. Right now the resources are on this table. Letting them go to waste would be professionally irresponsible. I poured myself half a glass of red wine. This isn't dinner. This is loss mitigation. Light sat nearby hugging his briefcase, not touching anything. He'd looked queasy ever since my card got swiped. I pushed the seafood platters toward him. Eat. He waved his hand. Your Majesty, please enjoy. This lobster. I paid for it. The caviar, I paid for it. Even that little plate of cherry tomatoes is on my tab. If you don't eat, my losses get bigger. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally picked up a shrimp. Zhou Jining set down her tablet and watched me. I'd cleared 3 plates already. She told me later she'd been to plenty of fancy dinners growing up, seen people eat premium ingredients before, but never witnessed anyone demolish wagyu, lobster, and caviar with the energy of a guy. Stress eating a lunch combo at the cafeteria downstairs. Mr. Yi, eating too much will make you sick. Gamajila's healthcare system probably can't handle a stomach pump the moment you land. I waved her off. Money in your hand is just money. Money in your stomach is an asset. I pushed the wine bottle toward her. Want some? If you don't drink it, I'm finishing the whole thing myself. No alcohol during work hours. You live life way too tight. She went back to her documents. I just value my stomach more than you value yours. Behind the curtain, 2 flight attendants were huddled together, giggling quietly. Apparently, they'd flown plenty of private charters before. Those passengers usually complained about water temperature, demanded wine be decanted for the exact right amount of time, insisted their steak be cut into small pieces, and called the airline headquarters if service was 3 seconds slow. Today's passenger? Fork never stopped moving. Food vanishing at alarming speed. I noticed them watching and waved them over. Have you 2 eaten yet? They snapped to attention. Sir, we're not hungry. Come have a bite. There's half a lobster left. Thank you. We have crew meals. Light couldn't take it anymore. He scooted next to me and dropped his voice. Your Majesty, please slow down. Why? Princess Anya has arranged a grand welcome ceremony at Burat Airport. Kingdom officials and citizens will all be present. As the returning king, your bearing is very important. My fork froze midair. Welcome ceremony. My brain instantly painted the picture. Red carpet, honor guard, military band, crowds lining both sides of the runway. Anya might be broke, but she wouldn't receive her new king looking cheap. As long as the spectacle was there, it meant the government machine still functioned. The airport was operational. The crown still commanded respect. 9 billion in debt, sure, but maybe there was room to maneuver. I wiped my hands with a napkin. Fine. I'll leave Anya some dignity. I set the wine glass down. Save the rest. I'll eat a state banquet at the palace tonight. Light exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 6 hours. Then his stomach cramped and he pressed his hand against his belly. I'll go lie down in the back. Go ahead. Your Majesty, please remember, bearing is everything. Yeah. After he left, the cabin got quiet. A flight attendant came to clear plates. She'd checked our documents earlier. Zhou Jining had a diplomatic passport, and I had a plain ordinary passport that still smelled like fresh ink. The 2 of us made 0 sense together. She waited until I seemed approachable and asked the question clearly burning a hole in her brain. Miss Zhou, is this gentleman your family member? Before Zhou Jining could answer, I leaned back in my seat. No, the attendant got more confused. Then you are? I pointed at myself. King of the Kingdom of Gamajila, heading home for my coronation. She froze for 2 seconds, then burst out laughing. Sir, you're so funny. If you're a king, then I'm the Virgin Mary. My eyebrows crunched together. I'm telling the truth. Why don't you believe me? I turned to Zhou Jining. Explain it to her. Zhou Jining closed her tablet and tucked her red diplomatic passport into her bag. He's not joking. Mr. Yi Fei is the legitimate heir to the Gamajila throne. I was assigned by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to accompany him. The smile died on the attendant's face. She looked at Zhou Jining, then at me. The plate in her hand clinked against the table edge. Here I was in my washed-out shirt, black-framed glasses, 3 empty steak plates in front of me, having just calculated how to eat back 100,000 yuan, and I was a king. Her throat went dry. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. She grabbed the plates and speed-walked back to the galley. I watched her go. Her composure needs work. Zhou Jining looked down at her files. You just demolished everything she knows about reality, and you're criticizing her reaction time. I didn't argue. The wine and beef hit me all at once. I reclined my seat flat, pulled a blanket over myself. Wake me when we land. I slept like a dead man. When the cabin announcement woke me up, the plane was already descending. I unbuckled and went to the bathroom. Cold water on the face. The mirror showed messy hair, wrinkled collar, and a 23-year-old former office drone about to inherit a kingdom drowning in 90 billion yuan of debt. I reached up and took off my glasses, slipped them into my pocket. Back in China, I wore those plain lens frames on purpose. Growing up, my face attracted way too much female attention. The prettier the girl who noticed me, the bigger the headache that followed. Eventually, I just got fake glasses to make myself look ordinary. Less trouble that way. But Yahello wasn't China. Nobody there cared if I was Employee of the Month or whether I clocked in on time. They only cared about the king. I straightened my collar and walked back into the cabin. Zhou Jianing was in the aisle, sorting documents into her bag. She looked up and paused. Without the glasses, the office drone aura was gone. Something sharper took its place. The bone structure came through clearer. High nose bridge, deep-set eyes. The softness replaced by something cooler. She studied me for 2 seconds and nodded. That does look more like a king. I tugged my sleeve cuff. Always was. The plane kept descending. Landing gear dropped. The cabin trembled. I moved to a window seat, crossed my hands over my knees, sat with my back perfectly straight. I resisted looking out the window. Anya prepared a welcome ceremony. I needed to set the tone before I stepped off this plane. No nervousness. No gawking. The new king of the Sharif dynasty was returning, and everyone needed to see it. But Zhou Jianing did look out the window. Her folder stopped in midair. I noticed her reaction. Good. It must be impressive down there. Don't get too excited, I said, patting her shoulder. Stay close to me when we get out. Mind your bearing. She turned around. She paused for several seconds. Then all she said was, brace yourself. I didn't catch the warning. The wheels hit the runway. Taxi. Deceleration. Full stop. The cabin door opened. No jet bridge outside. An ancient passenger staircase truck groaned its way over, wheels screeching like a dying animal. 2 flight attendants stood on either side of the door. Your Majesty, we wish you all the best. I nodded. I straightened my collar one last time, stepped through the door, and walked into the sunlight. I raised my right hand, ready to wave to the crowd below. Then my hand froze in midair. No red carpet. No honor guard. No military band. No cheering citizens lining the tarmac. Just 5 or 6 people in old uniforms, standing crooked like a fence that gave up. One guy's sleeves were faded white. Another's pants were 2 inches too short. A third one was wearing flip-flops. The leader, a round, sweating man, held up a piece of cardboard. On the cardboard, written in wobbly black marker, were 4 Chinese characters. Welcome YFEI. Next to the words was a hand-drawn smiley face. The ink had bled where sweat soaked through the middle of the sign. At the edge of the tarmac sat an old Toyota pickup truck. Door handles rusted. Exhaust pipe coughing black smoke. In the truck bed, 2 crates of dead fish. Flies buzzing everywhere. Beside the truck stood a tall woman. Dark military-style uniform fitted tight, platinum blonde hair pinned up without a single strand loose. She wasn't looking at me. Her left hand tapped a calculator. Her right hand held a receipt that had been folded multiple times. Staircase truck maintenance and usage fee, $30. Temporary security detail bonus, $20. Welcome sign materials, $7. The dead fish were donated by the fishing port. Not included in the reception budget. She pressed the last number, then finally set the calculator down. A gust of sea wind blew across the tarmac. A plastic bag tumbled past and got caught under the staircase truck's tire. Zhou Jianing stood behind me, holding her folder up to cover half her face. This was what she saw from the window. My right hand was still raised. I slowly turned my head toward Light, who had just emerged from the rear cabin. He was clutching his stomach, standing perfectly still, not daring to come closer. I pointed at the cardboard sign. Then I pointed at the 2 crates of dead fish in the pickup truck bed. Minister Light, would you care to explain what the FK you meant by grand? The Gulfstream's pilot came sprinting down the stairs like the tarmac was on fire. Mr. Yi, the plane has to take off now. I turned around. What's the rush? I paid $100,000 for this thing. It can't sit for 30 minutes. He shook his head so hard I thought it'd fly off. Burad Airport has no aviation fuel. The storage tanks have been empty for ages. There isn't even backup diesel. If we don't leave immediately, we won't have enough fuel to fly out of this ocean. I pointed at the plane. Perfect. Take me to Auckland with you. Whoever wants this place can have it. Zhou Jianing flipped open her document folder like a lawyer about to ruin someone's day. You wouldn't make it back to China? I stopped. This plane is only going to Auckland for fuel. The airline didn't arrange passenger return service. You don't have a New Zealand visa, no onward ticket, no entry documents. When the private jet lands, you'd have to go through border control with the crew. She closed the folder. You'd just be adding a deportation fee to your expenses. I had nothing. The pilot nodded at me, turned, and ran back up the stairs. The cabin door sealed. The staircase truck reversed. Engines roared over the ocean wind. My 100,000 yuan Gulfstream G550 rolled down the runway, lifted its nose, and punched through the clouds. I stood there watching until it completely disappeared. 100,000 yuan. My old salary was 6,000 a month. Even saving every single penny, that's over a year and a half of work. Gone. And with it, my escape route. I wiped my face with my hand and walked toward the smoking Toyota pickup. As I passed the welcome committee, the chubby guy in front dropped his cardboard sign. All 5 or 6 of them hit the ground at once, knees crashing into concrete, hands interlocked, pressed to their foreheads. The sound echoed across the empty tarmac. Thud. One guy's pants were too short. Another's sleeves were frayed to threads. The one on the end was still wearing flip-flops. Their foreheads touched the ground. They chanted something in Gamajilan, short, rhythmic, perfectly synchronized. I froze. The chubby leader's uniform was washed gray. Dust from the tarmac stuck to his forehead. His whole body was trembling. I don't do this kind of thing. Back at work, the most respect I ever showed my boss was clinking glasses at a dinner. Having people kneel in front of me made my skin crawl. Get up. Stop doing that. I reached down to pull the guy to his feet. Light grabbed my wrist from the side. Your Majesty, don't. I frowned. His palm was drenched in sweat. The kingdom has had no king for 3 years. Toxic fog sealed off half the country. Debt is crushing the government. Everyone is struggling. Many of these people survived not because of food or wages, but because they still believe the Sharif dynasty hasn't ended. If the ceremony isn't completed, they'll think the king rejected them. His voice cracked. They can't take that. I pulled my hand back. The chubby man was still pressed flat against the ground. Wind swept across the tarmac and flipped the cardboard sign over. Those 4 wobbly Chinese characters faced the concrete now. Welcome YFEI. I stared at it for 2 seconds. Then I walked past them all, toward the pickup truck. Anya stood by the driver's door. Platinum hair pinned tight, dark military uniform without a single wrinkle, a crystal dagger hanging at her waist. She sized me up in half a second. Welcome home. Perfect Chinese. For words. That's it. I'd spent the entire flight preparing to spar with this regent queen. Power grabber. Throne protector. $9 billion debtor. Based on every TV drama I'd ever watched, she should have hit me with some intimidation play the moment I landed. Instead, 4 words. And every comeback I'd rehearsed got stuck in my throat like a chicken bone. She opened the driver's door and got in. Light opened the rear door for us. Your Majesty, Miss Zhou, please. Zhou Jianing and I squeezed into the back seat. The whole truck reeked of fish guts and engine oil. Anya turned the key. The pickup coughed like a chain smoker, belched black exhaust, and wobbled out of the airport. The window wouldn't close all the way. Hot wind poured in. There were fish scales on the seat cushion that nobody had bothered to clean. Up front, Anya and Light started talking rapid fire in Gamajilan. They weren't trying to hide it from me. They just didn't care that I couldn't understand. I had no idea what they were saying. But I could tell from Light's body language that Anya was not impressed with her new king. What I definitely didn't know was that the woman driving this fish truck had already calculated the math on marrying me. Wedding, ceremony, fixed allowance, 0 access to government funds, ports, or land. A husband on paper. A king in name. A pet with a crown. She'd already plugged the whole thing into a budget spreadsheet. I was a line item. Meanwhile, I was staring out the window and losing the will to live. No paved road outside the airport. The pickup bounced onto a dirt track, tires splashing through puddles, flinging mud onto tin-walled shacks. Most of the houses had no windows. Tin roofs, plywood walls, electrical wires tangled overhead like spaghetti someone threw at the sky. Sewage trickled along the roadside. I slowly sat up straight. This was Gamajila. This was the royal asset portfolio I flew here to inspect. But what really got me was the people. Both sides of the road, packed. Mostly dark-skinned, with some East Asian, white, and black faces mixed in. Some wore old work clothes. Some were barefoot. Some carried children on their backs. They were all walking the same direction. When they heard the pickup engine, the crowd parted without being asked. Nobody spoke. As Anya's truck passed, each person stopped, pressed a fist to their forehead, and bowed their head. Zhou Jianing sat beside me, fingernails digging into the edge of her folder. She'd been to impoverished areas before. She'd visited disaster relief camps. But the silence here was different. It was so thick you could choke on it. I knocked on the back of the driver's seat. Anya, where are we going? What are all these people doing? She glanced at me through the rearview mirror. King Square. 30,000 people are heading there today. They know the new king has arrived. They're all waiting for you. 300,000. Not 30,000. 300,000. My back pressed flat against the seat. Before I came, Light told me the royal family owned docks, fishing companies, coastal land, and collections. I thought I was taking over a bankrupt startup. Audit the assets, sell the dead weight, keep the rest, maybe cash out. But now, the airport had no fuel. The government couldn't scrape together $30 for a staircase truck fee. The pickup bed was full of dead fish. And 300,000 people were marching toward a square. They weren't coming to watch a new king wave and smile. They were carrying the hopes of the other 700,000 on their backs. They wanted the king to solve food, wages, debt, and tomorrow. $9 billion. Nearly 1 million lives. The moment I stepped onto that square, all of it would land on my shoulders like a concrete slab dropped from orbit. I took off my glasses, put them back on, took them off again. I'm not going to accept the throne. SCRECH. Anya slammed the brake so hard the pickup skidded sideways across the dirt road. A cloud of yellow dust exploded behind us. Everyone on the road stopped walking. Anya twisted around. Her left hand stayed on the steering wheel. Her right hand was already resting on the crystal dagger at her waist. You sure about that? I didn't answer. Not because of the dagger. Something else had just happened. Inside my head, out of nowhere, a sound rang out. Crisp, unmistakable, like a notification from an app one never installed. Ding. I didn't answer Anya's question. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and basically played dead in the back seat of a fish truck. Anya's hand was still on that crystal dagger. She probably wanted to stab me, but decided I wasn't worth cleaning the blade. Then something happened inside my skull. A semi-transparent blue panel floated into my vision like a pop-up ad I never subscribed to. National Development System activated. A robotic voice echoed through my brain, calm and genderless, like a GPS narrator for the apocalypse. Host has arrived in the kingdom of Gamajila. Confirm throne inheritance to receive starter bonus. Gamajila language mastery. I cursed internally. Gamajila language mastery. This was my reward. A language spoken by a country that can't afford airport fuel, has killer fog covering half its land, and survives by selling fish from the back of a rusty pickup truck. What am I supposed to do with this? Have a heart-to-heart with the dead fish in the truck bed? I spent 100,000 yuan to fly here, and the system hands me a language pack. This was exactly like my old boss promising me career growth opportunities after making me work weekends, then rewarding me with half a day off at Chinese New Year. No deal. Host resistance detected. Bonus upgraded. National Development Talent Tree unlocked. Additional reward. 5 free talent points. I didn't flinch. Talent points. That phrase reeked of corporate nonsense. My old manager loved throwing around words like growth pathway, and capability model, and future potential. Then when project bonuses came in, he took the fat cut and the rest of us split a pack of milk tea coupons. This country owed $9 billion. Could talent points pay that off? Fix the airport? Make that Toyota pickup stop coughing like it had emphysema? I turned my face toward the window. Go ahead and unbind. I'll swim back to China. At least my office bathroom has hot water. Warning. If host abandons the throne, system will permanently unbind. My breathing stayed steady. Then unbind. The system went quiet. A few seconds passed. Then, final offer generated. Core reward. Every valid Gamajila citizen under host's legal rule generates $50 per day. My eyelid twitched. Current estimated valid citizens, 1 million. Estimated daily income, $50 million. $50 million. Per day. I sat up straight so fast my spine cracked. 50 million. Not yuan. Dollars. My old monthly salary was 6,000 yuan. On payday, I had to immediately subtract rent, utilities, credit card payments, social security, and food money. $50 million a day. I was terrified to calculate how many lifetimes of my salary that represented. If I did the math, I might rip the pickup truck door off its hinges and sell it for scrap out of sheer emotional instability. Zhou Jining noticed me suddenly sitting up and gave me a look. I ignored her. The system was desperate to lock me in. That meant it wasn't omnipotent. It had needs. And if it had needs, I could negotiate. I spoke inside my head. Don't insult me with $50. I spent years getting underpaid by my boss. The thing I hate most in this world is someone drawing me a pretty picture and calling it a growth opportunity. $100 per person per day. Language mastery. Keep it. Talent points. Make it 10. Also, the money has to be legal. Spendable, Transferable, convertible, real. No freezing my accounts one random Tuesday because the system had a mood swing. Miss a single condition and I'm getting out of this truck, walking back to the airport, and swimming home. The system said nothing. Anya released her dagger, turned the key. The pickup coughed twice and farted black smoke. Whatever. When we get there, you can leave. The truck rattled back onto the dirt road. Roadside residents bent over coughing from the exhaust. Light sat in the passenger seat clutching his old briefcase, looking like his soul had already left his body. 20 minutes later, the pickup stopped behind a gray 3-story building. Half the wall plaster had fallen off, exposing red bricks stained black by rain. Rusty water pipes ran down the exterior, dripping brownish liquid. "Get out," Anya said. We went in through the back door. The hallway smelled like mold and broken dreams. The wooden staircase groaned with every step like it was begging for retirement. At the second-floor landing, I stopped. Half a window was missing. Through the gap, I saw the square in front of the building. A massive stretch of cracked yellow earth. No grass, no fountain, no flags, no decorations of any kind. Just people, wall-to-wall people, stretching from directly below the balcony all the way to the tin roof shantytown in the distance. Brown faces, yellow faces, white faces, black faces, all mixed together. Nobody talking, nobody pushing, nobody leaving. 300,000 human beings standing in silence, staring at a crumbling third-floor balcony. Some wore faded work clothes. Some were barefoot. Some carried children on their backs. An old woman leaned on a wooden stick next to a boy in a worn-out school uniform. The boy was clutching an empty water jug, its lid tied on with a strip of cloth. Zhou Jining stood behind me, knuckles white on her folder. She'd visited poor areas before, disaster relief camps too. Those places always had noise, people fighting over supplies, crying, shouting, guards keeping order. Here there was nothing, just 300,000 people waiting. Anya stopped at the stairs to the third floor. "Last time I'm asking, you really giving up the throne?" The system still hadn't answered my counteroffer. I looked at her. "Yes, I'm done." Light's face went chalk white. He lunged forward, grabbing at my sleeve. "Your Majesty, you can't." Anya raised her hand. Light froze. She stood there for a few seconds. "Fine. Bloodline can't solve hunger. Forcing it won't help." She pointed upstairs. "The people know the Sheriff heir came back. Go up there, stand for 1 minute, say something. Give them closure. Give my adoptive father closure too, my adoptive great-uncle. The man who searched for me for 3 years. When I was little, my mother always kept a yellowed black and white photograph. A man in a military uniform, standing in front of a palace I'd never seen. She told me he was my grandfather's brother. An important man. Someday, she said, someone will come for us. Then she got sick. Money ran out. That photograph got sold with a pile of junk to a scrap collector. I went quiet for a moment. Fine. I'll go up and say a few words. I walked past Anya, climbed to the third floor, and pushed open the wooden door. Sunlight hit me full in the face. The balcony was small. Concrete floor full of potholes. Railing rusted half to death. In the center sat an ancient microphone on a stand, its cord cracked open with copper wires showing through. I walked to the mic. Zhou Jining stayed at the door, watching my back. Old plaid shirt, bleached jeans, regular sneakers. But when I stopped at the center of that balcony, every single one of those 300,000 faces looked up. I gripped the rusty railing. The square fell silent. Not crowd noise silent. Silent. No fabric rustling. No feet shuffling. Nothing. 300,000 pairs of eyes locked onto me. Some suspicious. Some scared. Most just desperate to know one thing. Now that the last royal heir was here, would they eat tomorrow? My Adam's apple bobbed. At my old company's annual party, I had to rehearse a speech just to go on stage and collect an air fryer from the raffle. Now 300,000 people were standing below me. They weren't waiting for a greeting. They were waiting for a reason to keep going. I opened my mouth. The plan was simple. Say, "Hello everyone." Follow up with, "I'm leaving now," and wrap up this circus. 1 second before the words came out. Ding. Host demands confirmed. Final agreement established. National Development System officially bound. Starter reward. Gamagila language mastery. Delivered. Starter reward. 10 free talent points. Delivered. Foreign words flooded my brain like someone cracked open a dam. Syllables that meant nothing 5 seconds ago split apart, reassembled, and became instinct. I could speak Gamajilan the way I spoke Mandarin, without thinking. I could even replay what Anya and Light said to each other in the truck. This woman, she was really going all out for this country, huh? Financial compliance pathway established. Identity verification, tax filing, forex allocation, and regulatory risk controls processed. Host may freely hold, convert, transfer, and use system income. Valid citizen count calculating. Current valid Gamagila citizens, 1 million. Daily income. Rate, $100 per person. Day 1 income distributing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. One single vibration. I let go of the railing and pulled out my beat-up second-hand Android with the cracked screen edge. Pressed the power button. Lock screen lit up. One text message from the Bank of China, pinned at the top. Bank of China, your savings account ending in 8848 received a cross-border forex deposit of $100 million on August 15th at 14:30. Current available balance, $100 million. I stared at that number. $100 million. Actually sitting in my bank account. And below me, 300,000 people were still waiting for me to say my first word. $100 million. Sitting in my bank account. The Bank of China text message was still glowing on my cracked screen like a holy scripture written in zeros. This wasn't my boss promising a bonus after the project wraps up. This wasn't, we'll discuss it at year-end review. The money was eyeing the card. Real. Spendable. 100 million American dollars that did not exist 20 seconds ago. I shoved the phone back into my pocket and wiped my palm on my shirt. 100 million a day. Back at my old job, I once pulled 3 consecutive all-nighters for a project bonus worth a few thousand yuan. Right now, you could ask me to carry grain sacks downstairs on my back, and I'd grab 2 at a time, whistling show tunes. 300,000 people were still waiting below the balcony. Wind howled through the broken window, knocking the microphone cable against the wall. Anya stood at the door, hand on that crystal dagger, patience fully expired. She barked something at Light in Gamagila. Get him out of here. 30 seconds of me staring at my phone had pushed her past her limit. Zhou Jining was pressed against the wall, her folder creased from how hard she'd been gripping it. She couldn't understand the local language, but she could read the room, and the room was about to collapse. I looked up. I walked to the balcony edge and pressed both hands onto the rusted railing. Anya froze mid-step. The guy who wanted to swim back to China 5 minutes ago just transformed. Something shifted the moment I stood in front of that microphone. I glanced down. Yellow dirt packed with bodies. Bare feet. Children in arms. Empty water jugs. These people weren't waiting for a welcome ceremony. They were waiting to find out if they'd eat tomorrow. I leaned into the mic. BST. Static screeched across the square. 300,000 people went dead silent at the same time. I opened my mouth. In perfect, fluent Gamagila. People of Gamagila. I have returned. The sound crackled out of the ancient speakers. The square held its breath. Then the old woman in the front row, the one with the wooden stick, dropped to her knees. The little boy beside her clutched his empty water jug and screamed something, his voice cracking. More people knelt. Nobody gave an order. Nobody organized anything. 300,000 people laced their fingers together, pressed them to their foreheads, and put their knees in the dirt. They understood. The new king was speaking their language. Not broken tourist phrases. Not reading from a card. Native-level fluency, like he'd spoken it his whole life. Zhou Jining stood behind me, barely breathing. She couldn't understand a word I said, but she understood what was happening below. The suffocating hopelessness that had been sitting on that square like a wet blanket. I'd just ripped it off with one sentence. And at the doorway, Anya hadn't moved. But inside her head, everything she said in the pickup truck was replaying on a loop. This is the heir? Too young. Can't stand on his own. After the coronation, I'll marry him. He doesn't touch politics, treasury, ports, or land. Can the crown buy me $500,000? I heard all of it. Every word. From the moment we left the airport, I'd been pretending not to understand. She thought she was evaluating me. The whole time, I was evaluating her. Anya gripped the doorframe. The realization hit her like a truck. This man wasn't some clueless puppet she could park on a throne and control with an allowance. He came prepared. I didn't turn around. I was busy. Inside my head, I pulled up the system panel. System. 10 talent points. All of them into citizen happiness. Confirmed. 10 free talent points allocated. Citizen happiness. 10 levels. Current status. Maximum. Citizens will feel profound happiness simply by being alive and in Yifei's presence. Down in the square, the restless energy shifted. People wiped dust off their faces. Parents held their children tighter. Some looked up, and the numbness in their expressions cracked open just a little, like sunlight through storm clouds. I leaned back into the mic. I am the last blood of the Sharif dynasty. This land carries the blood of my ancestors. I didn't come back for a title. I came back to take responsibility for this country, someone in the crowd yelled. Then more voices followed. A wave of sound building. I raised my right hand. The square went quiet again instantly. From today, Gamagila stops waiting for handouts. The ports will reopen. Schools will reopen. Hospitals will have their lights on again. Your children should not be standing in a square holding empty water jugs. The old woman's shoulders shook. The boy with the jug raised his arm toward me and shouted something I couldn't quite catch. But the roar that followed from 300,000 throats needed no translation. Light was on his knees at the edge of the balcony, forehead pressed to his hands, whole body trembling. 62 years old. 3 years searching across China. Archives, old military units, every lead connected to Prince George. He spent every cent he had. People called him a scammer and threw him out. People cursed him to his face. Today he finally brought the king home. The late king's blessing. His voice kept breaking. The kingdom has a king again. Anya stood in the back. She hadn't stepped forward. The exhaustion that had been crushing her for years loosened. Just barely, just for a second. 9 billion in debt. 1 million people. Toxic fog. Food shortages. Port problems. Unpaid wages. All still there, every single one. But watching me on that balcony planted a dangerous thought in her head. Maybe someone could actually carry all of this. She bit down and killed the thought. No money in the treasury. No fuel at the airport. Government can't even pay workers. Speeches don't put grain in warehouses. I tapped the microphone. I'm not good at pretty words. I'm only going to do one thing. Keep the people of Gamagila alive. I paused. Not a sound from below. 300,000 people holding their breath, waiting for whatever came next. I held up one finger. 1 week. Before this time next week, everyone eats. Not one meal. From now on, nobody in this country goes hungry again. The square detonated. People on their knees, bowing. People grabbing whoever was next to them, crying. People reaching toward the balcony with both hands. The crumbling 3-story building shook like it might come apart. I stepped back from the mic, brain already running numbers. 100 million was in the account. Buying food wasn't hard. Getting it into port, into storage, into every single household. That was the real job. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, I just needed to hold the room. I turned to go downstairs. Anya blocked the door. Hand on the crystal dagger. That brief moment of softness on her face. Gone. Replaced by ice. You're full of it. 1 million people. 1 day of food, transport, storage, and distribution costs hundreds of thousands of dollars minimum. What exactly are you going to guarantee a hunger-free week with? She stepped forward. Feed them air. Or were you planning to rip up the palace floor tiles and boil them into soup? What are you going to guarantee it with? Anya blocked the balcony door like a final boss guarding a dungeon exit. Hand on the crystal dagger. Eyes colder than my old office AC. 1 million people. How much grain per day? How do you transport it? Are there enough warehouses? Who distributes it? You yell a few sentences from a balcony and food falls from the sky. Downstairs, 300,000 people were still on their knees. They just heard me promise to end hunger in 1 week. Anya didn't believe me. Not because she didn't want to. Because she didn't dare. 3 years of waking up every morning and doing math. How much was left in the treasury? Which department hadn't been paid in months? Which debt interest was about to hit? Whether the fishing port caught anything today? How many days of diesel the hospital generator had left? She knew better than anyone. Gamagila didn't need slogans. It needed cash. I looked up. Does Burad have a deep water port? She paused. Wasn't expecting that question. West Coast. Used to handle cargo ships. Half abandoned now. Channel hasn't been dredged in years. Big ships can't get in. Draft depth? 12 meters. Port cranes? All rusted solid. Unloading is done by hand. I nodded. 12 meters meant a 60,000-ton bulk carrier could probably dock. Broken cranes didn't matter. There were 300,000 people standing in that square. If grain reached the port, manpower was the last thing we'd be short on. I turned to Zhou Jianing. Call your ministry. Find out how fast they can get food here. How many days? She pulled out an encrypted phone immediately, walked to the far end of the balcony, and dialed the Oceania Division hotline. The call got transferred a few times. She spoke fast and low, laying out the situation. 300,000 gathered. National food crisis. New king promised 1 week. If China provides trade support, there's an opening to establish diplomatic relations. Silence on the other end. Then, Comrade Zhou Jianing, Gamajila has not established diplomatic relations with China. There is no sovereign credit guarantee. Resource allocation requires approval. 15 days minimum. She pushed harder. 15 days is too long. The population is experiencing chronic hunger. 300,000 people are waiting for grain right now. This is a critical window for diplomatic relations. The other end didn't budge. Procedures must be followed. Also, all supplies require full cash payment. No free aid. 10 minutes later, she came back. Ministry's answer: 15 days earliest. Full payment required. Zero free assistance. Anya leaned against the doorframe and let out a laugh that could freeze lava. 15 days? The people in that square might not last 3. She looked at me. Heard that? How are you going to pay? Swipe that savings card you used for the 100,000 yuan fuel bill? Or rip out the palace pillars and sell the lumber? I ignored her entirely. I held my hand out to Zhou Jianing. Give me the phone. She hesitated half a second, then handed it over. I hit redial. 2 rings. Hello, transfer me to Deputy Minister Hua. The operator stuttered. May I ask who? King of the Kingdom of Gamajila. Yi Fei. A few seconds of silence. Then Hua's voice came through. Mr. Yi Fei? Congratulations on your coronation. Skip the pleasantries. I walked to the balcony railing. Below me, 300,000 people hadn't moved. 15 days is too long. I'll give you one sentence. The 300,000 people in this square need to eat today, Hua paused. Grain reserves require process. Loading at coastal ports takes time. 12 days is already the absolute limit. I looked down at the square. Someone had knelt so long their pants were torn at the knees. A woman held a baby. A man sat behind an empty water jug. They had no idea what was being negotiated upstairs. All they knew was that the new king promised them food. Minister Hua, China has massive agricultural shipping orders year-round. Right now, there must be cargo ships carrying grain, oil, and meat across the Pacific. Hua went quiet for 2 seconds. Mr. Yi, are you suggesting we redirect in-transit vessels? Outbid and intercept. I tapped the rusted railing. Are there ships that can reach Burad port within 3 days? Cargo fees, rerouting costs, insurance changes, breach of contract penalties. I'll cover everything. Anya stood frozen. She heard the words, I'll cover everything, and her hand went straight back to the dagger. Where was this man getting his confidence? An hour ago, he was practically crying over 100,000 yuan fuel surcharge. Now he was casually ordering multiple cargo ships full of grain. Hua didn't agree right away. Redirecting in-transit vessels involves existing contracts, destination port filings, insurance, delivery deadlines. I need to confirm with Kafko. I'll call back. Click. Anya turned and headed downstairs. Office. We wait for the call. I followed. Zhou Jianing was right behind me, walking noticeably faster than before. She understood what I'd just done wasn't ordinary grocery shopping. This was diplomatic icebreaking. A declaration of sovereignty paid for in cold hard cash. 1 hour later, the Regent Queen's office turned out to be a room where half the wall plaster had fallen off. The desk edges were worn black, account ledgers were stacked in the corner. The ceiling fan screamed every time it rotated, and the window wouldn't close properly, so the whole place smelled like ocean and fish guts. Anya stood by a peeling file cabinet. Stop waiting. Commercial cargo ships have delivery deadlines. No country is going to redirect supplies for Gamajila. I pulled over a wooden chair and sat down. Not redirect for sale. Redirect for unloading. China gets a diplomatic achievement. Gamajila gets food. They want cash. I give cash. Anya wrapped the desk. Do you have cash? Gamajila doesn't. The crown doesn't. The treasury definitely doesn't. Our current account balance is $320. She paused. That's not enough to buy a decent cow. I leaned back. Anya, you're selling Gamajila too cheap. Center of the Pacific Ocean. 1 million square kilometers of territory. 2,000 kilometers of coastline. 18 outer islands. You think the only thing people see here is toxic fog? She stared at me. The north and center have been sealed by fog for 50 years. The UN lost hundreds of scientists. Every country gave up. Who's going to pay for that land? Dead land still has value. I pointed at the old map on the wall. Land in the center of the Pacific isn't scrap paper. China needs a partner in the South Pacific. Gamajila needs food, ports, hospitals, and cash flow. Everybody gets what they want. I turned to Zhou Jianing. Miss Zhou, would you say this counts as a diplomatic achievement? She looked up. It counts. And not a small one. If Gamajila agrees to formal diplomatic relations, this shipment becomes the first ever bilateral trade order. The ministry will take it seriously. Anya looked at both of us. You two really dream big. Gamajila can't even afford a new fishing boat. What makes you think you can establish relations with China? In the corner, Light sat clutching his old briefcase, silent for a long time. He watched me, and something that had been clenched in his chest for 3 years finally loosened. Since the old king died, everything had been sliding downhill. Ports shut, airport dry, government paychecks bouncing, debt collection letters piling up. Anya keeping the country alive at all was already a miracle. But keeping alive and turning things around, those were two completely different things. I'd been here less than a day. First I got 300,000 people to lift their heads. Now I was negotiating 3 cargo ships. Maybe, just maybe, this young king could actually do something. The phone on the desk buzzed. Zhou Jianing answered instantly. Deputy Minister Hua. She listened for about 15 seconds, then switched to speaker and set the phone on the table. Hua's voice filled the room. COFCO has 3 in-transit vessels available for rerouting to Burad port. 1 carrying 50,000 tons of wheat flour. 1 carrying 30,000 tons of frozen meat. Half beef, half chicken. 1 carrying 50,000 tons of soybeans. The farthest ship is 3 days from Burad. The office went silent. Anya straightened up. 3 days. Actually 3 days. Hua continued. China can coordinate the rerouting. Payment at original contract prices. No additional breach of contract surcharges. But there is one condition. The Kingdom of Gamajila must immediately sign a formal diplomatic establishment communique with China. I didn't hesitate for even a fraction of a second. Deal. Zhou Jianing picked up her pen. Her wrist was trembling slightly. Before she came to Gamajila, nobody thought this mission had a chance. Zero diplomatic foundation. A bankrupt micronation. Territory covered in death fog. And now, a diplomatic establishment was sitting right there on the desk. Anya cut in. What's the total price? Hua's voice went back to business mode. The itemized list has been sent to Zhou Jianing's work email. Payment confirmed. Ships turn immediately. Click. The ceiling fan kept squealing. Zhou Jianing opened her inbox. An encrypted email popped up. She downloaded the attachment. Cargo manifest. Transport fees. Rerouting fees. Insurance adjustment fees. Everything itemized down to the last cent. Wheat flour, 50,000 tons. Frozen meat, 30,000 tons, half beef, half chicken. Soybeans, 50,000 tons. Total, $94 million US. She turned the screen toward Anya. Anya stared at the final number. $94 million. That amount could pay government employees for 100 years. Cover next quarter's debt interest. Dredge the West Coast shipping channel 100 times over. Rebuild the hospital. Buy diesel. Put fuel back in the airport. And the National Treasury had $320. She stared at those numbers for a long time without moving. Then she pulled out the crystal dagger and slammed it into the desk. I am going to throw you into the toxic fog myself. I pulled out my phone. Opened the Bank of China app. $100 million sitting on the screen, glowing like the face of God. I slid the phone to the center of the table. Zhou Jianing. Reply to that email. Tell them to turn the ships. Anya had her crystal dagger half out of its sheath, blade pressing against the desk edge. She was about 2 seconds from physically throwing me out of the building. Then she glanced down at my phone screen. Bank of China app. Transfer page showing $94 million. And below that, the account balance. 100 million USD. She picked up the phone and brought it closer to her face. Stared at it the way people stare at a magic trick they can't figure out. The Kingdom Treasury had $320. She'd spent 3 years counting every single one. Should the hospital buy diesel or not? Should government salaries get delayed another month? Should the last forklift at the port get repaired or scrapped? Should fishermen still get fuel subsidies? She personally drove that dying pickup truck to the airport just to save a few bucks on a driver. And now I'd pulled out a cracked Android phone with $100 million sitting in it like loose change in a couch cushion. She switched to Gamajila. Where did this money come from? I leaned back, fingers laced together. Legal income. How I spend it is my decision. She sheathed the dagger, walked around the desk, and stopped right in front of me. Her military boots thumped on the damp wooden floor. You think 100 million can save this country? Gamajila owes 9 billion. Next month's interest alone is short 500,000. The hospital owes the diesel supplier. Schools owe their teachers. The port owes the maintenance crew. She gripped the desk edge, words coming faster and faster. You buy grain today. What about tomorrow? You pay everyone's salary this month. What about next month? Money buys food, but it doesn't buy a functioning port, it doesn't buy order, and it doesn't bring back the people who already fled to Australia. 3 days from now, when those ships arrive, what if they can't enter the port? 30,000 people will remember. Not that you bought grain. They'll only remember that you promised them food and didn't deliver. The office went quiet. Zhou Jining couldn't understand Gamma, but she could smell the gunpowder in our voices. Light stood in the corner hugging his briefcase, not daring to breathe. I looked up at Anya. I'd originally pegged her as a penny-pinching control freak who put marriage and monarchy on a spreadsheet. Back in the truck, she literally budgeted me as a line item. Crown plus fixed allowance, zero access to anything that matters. But just now, when she saw $100 million, she didn't reach for it. Didn't suggest funneling it into the treasury. Every word out of her mouth was about the next problem, and the one after that. This woman had a sharp tongue, but her heart wasn't rotten. I tapped the desk with my fingers. Auntie, think bigger. She froze for 2 seconds. Who are you calling Auntie? By family tree. That's what you are? I switched back to Chinese and held my hand out to Zhou Jining. Give me the payment account. Paying now. Zhou Jining clutched her folder. She'd seen big money move before. Her family was in construction, projects worth hundreds of millions, but those involved banks, guarantees, collateral, approvals, and weeks of processing. My money bypassed the national treasury. No guarantees. No sovereign credit backing. I'd just been crowned and was using a personal bank account to buy 77,000 tons of food and meat outright. Like ordering takeout. A very, very large takeout. She pulled up Kafka's overseas receiving account. I took the phone, copied the account number, pasted, entered the amount. $94 million. Face verification popped up. I held the phone to my face. Ding. Transfer complete. Zhou Jining stared at the receipt, throat dry. You're not routing this through the kingdom's finances? Adding a middleman wastes time. If some bank decides to audit the transaction for half a day, those 300,000 people eat oxygen for dinner. Money goes straight to Kafka. Ship's turn now. She snapped back into gear and dialed Deputy Minister Hua. Minister Hua, 94 million in cash has been sent. Please have Kafka confirm receipt. The other end confirmed. She hung up. Her folder finally came down from her chest for the first time in hours. 3 cargo ships were now changing course. The farthest one, 3 days from Burat. I stood up and walked to the old map on the wall. 50,000 tons of wheat flour. 30,000 tons of frozen meat. 50,000 tons of soybeans. Enough to feed the whole country for a while. I turned to Anya. Now tell me, how bad is the West Coast deep water port, exactly? She put the dagger away and switched back to her all-business face. Channel hasn't been dredged in at least 3 years. All port cranes are dead. Only one tugboat, and it's sitting in a repair yard. The dock structure itself hasn't collapsed. That's the only good news. I nodded. 130,000 tons of cargo doesn't get unloaded by a couple dozen guys with strong backs. I needed workers, transport vehicles, temporary warehouses, a distribution network, and most importantly, someone to organize the whole thing. I turned to Light. Light, get people. He stepped forward with his briefcase. Your Majesty, who should I call? Royal Council meeting. Bring the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Internal Affairs, and Finance Minister. We need to discuss dredging, unloading, transport, and grain distribution. Light didn't move. Anya didn't move either. The ceiling fan wheezed overhead, its metal blades clinking weakly against each other. I looked up. Go? What are you standing around for? Want me to hand-deliver invitations with wax seals? Light wiped his forehead. Your Majesty, the kingdom does have those positions. When the late king was alive, he served as prime minister himself to save costs. I nodded. The old man was a multitasker. Respect. Who's prime minister now? Light tilted his head slightly toward Anya. During Her Highness's regency, she assumed the role of prime minister. I looked at Anya. She straightened her collar. Problem? No problem. Deputy Prime Minister, Princess Anya was originally the Deputy Prime Minister. Minister of Internal Affairs? Light coughed. 3 years ago, the Interior Minister resigned and moved to Australia with his family. Princess Anya took over that role as well. I sat back down and stared at the ceiling fan. Let me get this straight. King, one person, me, just arrived, still smelling like airplane food. Foreign Minister, one person, Light, 62, running on fumes and personal savings. Regent Queen / Prime Minister / Deputy Prime Minister / Interior Minister. One person, Anya, who was basically 3 government officials in a trench coat. The entire senior leadership of this country couldn't fill a table for mahjong. I lowered my head. Please tell me the finance minister still exists. He does? Light paused. He's downstairs in the square, maintaining order. He's 72 years old. His hearing isn't great. I sat in silence for a moment. I thought I was taking over a company on the edge of bankruptcy. Turns out the company was already gone. All that was left was the sign out front, the dead, 1 million people, and 3 human beings who'd been holding the whole thing together with duct tape and willpower. Anya walked to the map and tapped the west coast. Now you understand why I didn't want you throwing money around. Gamajila doesn't need a rich man. We need people who can actually get things done. The grain ships arrive in 3 days. If the channel's blocked, the ships sit offshore. If the cranes are dead, cargo doesn't come off. If there's no transport, food doesn't reach the city. And the promise you made on that balcony becomes the country's newest joke. I stood up and picked a loose thread off my shirt cuff. Then we hire. Anya stopped. I looked at Light. Go downstairs. Find a few guys with big lungs and fast legs. Tell everyone in the square, the king is hiring. West Coast port, dredging, dock repair, cargo hauling. Meals provided. Daily pay. Cash every night. Light opened his mouth. Your Majesty, how much per day? I held up 2 fingers. $20. Light nearly dropped his briefcase. Anya's barely contained fury reignited like a gas burner. $20? At the kingdom's peak, dock workers made $5 a day. You pay that rate, and every single person in the city will abandon everything and run to the port. I headed for the door. Good. Let them run. The port doesn't need warm bodies. It needs people willing to work like their lives depend on it. I stopped at the doorway and looked back at Light. Add one more thing. Everyone who helps with the dredging gets first pick of the grain when it arrives. Light's breathing went ragged. Anya stood in place. This time, she didn't argue. I pushed the wooden door open. Tell them, 3 days from now, I want to see all 3 grain ships docked at Burad Port. Grain ships arriving in 3 days. Port channel still clogged with 3 years of mud. Clock ticking. No pressure. Light grabbed his falling-apart briefcase and stumbled downstairs to rally the crowd. That left me in the office with Anya, whose expression suggested she was debating between helping me and feeding me to the toxic fog. She stood by the desk, my phone screen still glowing with the $94 million transfer receipt, and hit me with reality. Dredging isn't just grabbing a few thousand people and telling them to dig. The channel is 12 meters deep. Mud buildup is over 4 meters in some spots. Without dredging ships, tugboats, and heavy equipment, 3 days is impossible. I pulled out my cracked Android. Then we rent equipment. Australia, New Zealand, wherever. Dredging ships, tugboats, loaders, water pumps. If it exists and it floats, rent it. Rental fees are expensive. Then double the price and tell them to airship it tomorrow. I looked up. Right now, the most expensive thing isn't equipment. It's 13,000 tons of grain sitting offshore in 3 days with nowhere to dock. Anya went quiet for a second, then picked up the office landline. Connect me to General Administration. Under Emergency Authority of the Regency and Interior Ministry, pull the full roster of all current and former civil servants. Include bank account details. In my inbox. 10 minutes. She hung up. I kept working my phone. I also need a list of everyone who left the Port Authority, Transportation, Warehousing, Construction, and Water departments. Especially engineers, dispatchers, drivers, and mechanics. She looked at me. You're planning to bring everyone back? The port needs to open. You can't do it alone. I leaned back in the wooden chair. You're already the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and Interior Minister. When the grain ships arrive, are you going to personally carry sacks on your back too? She didn't answer that. 5 minutes later, the inbox pinged. One list. Current and former civil servants. 1,254 people. Total unpaid wages owed. $2.1 million. I scanned it once, then opened the transfer page. Pay all back wages. Every cent plus $500 per person as additional compensation. Anya froze. All of them? All of them. Even the ones who quit. Did they quit because they didn't want to work? Or because the kingdom didn't pay them for 3 years? I typed in the amount. 270-some million. Wait, no. 2.7 million. Still a lot of zeros for a country whose treasury had $320. Face verification popped up. I held the phone to my face. Ding. Done. I set the phone on the desk. Send a text from the Interior Ministry. Tell them the money arrived. Anyone who still wants to work, tonight, 9 p.m., King Square. If you have professional skills, do professional work. If you don't, head to the port for dredging, dock repair, and cargo hauling. Anya stared at my busted phone like it had just performed surgery. $2.7 million. No budget committee, no fiscal review, no debt assessment. I pressed confirm, and the money exploded into the national banking system like a grenade made of cash. She'd spent years agonizing over a few dozen dollars for diesel, calculating until 2 in the morning. I only asked one question: can the job get done or not? I stood up and walked to the window. The square below was still packed. Some people crowded around light, signing up. Some sprinted home to grab tools. Others stood completely still, staring at their phones, reading the same bank notification over and over, probably checking if they were hallucinating. Money that doesn't hit accounts is just words. Money that lands. That's what makes people show up. Somewhere across town, a guy named Hesser was dragging himself down a dirt road carrying a plastic bag leaking blood from the bottom. He'd spent the whole day at sea and earned himself a palm-sized chunk of mystery meat, half a stale bread loaf, and some yellowing vegetables. $3 worth of ocean labor. He walked past King Square where Light was screaming into a tin megaphone about $20 a day and free grain for dredging volunteers. Hesser kept walking. His father had spent 3 years and every penny searching China for a royal heir, and now day one back, the old man was out there selling promises. For a king nobody knew. Hesser shook his head. When payday comes and the money's not there, this crowd would rip the doors off City Hall and burn them for firewood. He climbed 3 flights of stairs to his tiny apartment. Kitchen connected to the living room. 2 kids sleeping in the back room. His wife Lima took the bloody bag and noticed the meat. "We have meat today?" "Yeah." The flour jar was empty. Egg carton hadn't seen an egg in 2 weeks. A bag of potatoes in the corner, 7 or 8 left, all sprouting. This was what a former government employee's kitchen looked like after 3 years of no salary. Then his old Nokia buzzed. One text message. Sender, Gamagila National Bank. He pressed open. Your account ending in 4399 received a cross-border transfer of $2,200 on August 15th at 1730. Note, back wages $1,700, special compensation $500. Current available balance $2,204.50. Hesser stood frozen in the middle of his kitchen. $2,200. He'd spent all day soaking in salt water for $3. This money could feed his family of 4 for half a year. The phone buzzed again. All former civil servants. The new king has been crowned. All unpaid wages have been disbursed. Current and former personnel, please report to King Square at 9 p.m. tonight. The kingdom needs you. From the kitchen, a clatter. Lima's knife slipped into the sink. He walked over and held the phone in front of her face. She pressed the back of her hand to her mouth and stared at those numbers for a very long time. They really paid. Hesser didn't speak. He gripped the phone tight. He knew Gamagila's finances better than almost anyone. $2,000 per person was not pocket change for this kingdom. 1,254 people, full back, pay plus $500 each. The national treasury couldn't dream of covering that. The new king didn't write an IOU. He put the money into every single account first, then asked people to show up. The Nokia vibrated again. Caller ID, father. Hesser stared at the screen. He and his dad hadn't spoken in a year, not since he quit his government job and went fishing. He picked up. Hesser, Lights In was windy and loud. Did you get the money? Yes. Eat something. Get to City Hall now. Bring the Burad port channel maps you drew. Channel maps? The king is dredging the West Coast deepwater port. 3 days. 3 large cargo ships need to dock. Light's voice was shaking with something Hesser hadn't heard from him in years. His Majesty has already purchased $94 million worth of grain. Hesser's Nokia nearly slid out of his hand. 94 million. Grain already bought. Ships already turning. The port was actually reopening. He hung up, grabbed the half-stale bread off the cutting board, and shoved it in his mouth. Lima caught his sleeve. Slow down. I'm going to City Hall. He threw on his jacket and bolted out the door. The stairwell was thundering with footsteps. People carrying old file folders, dragging kids, making phone calls while running. Hesser jumped on a bicycle with a rusted chain and pedaled like his life depended on it. The streets filled up. He spotted old colleagues from the finance ministry. The port dispatcher who quit 3 months ago. Retired dock workers who'd gotten the back pay notification and ran out without finishing tying their shoes. For 3 years, Burad had been silent. Tonight, people were finally running again. Hesser blasted through the streets, skidded into the city hall courtyard, threw his bike against a wall, and charged upstairs clutching his channel maps. Second floor landing. Anya blocked the stairs. Dark military uniform, platinum hair pinned back, zero warmth on her face. "Your Highness." He stopped and pressed a fist to his forehead. She glanced at the rolled-up maps in his hand. "Light called you." "Yes. Follow me." They went up to the 3rd floor. End of the hallway, office door wide open. No lights on inside. Sunset squeezed through the window cracks and fell across the desk. And there I was, leaned back in the chair, feet up on the desk edge, flipping an old coin in one hand. Clink. The coin landed back in my palm. I looked up. Hesser stopped in the doorway. His back went rigid. He'd met business executives in Australia, government officials too. None of them would be sitting in a crumbling office with peeling walls, having just casually spent almost $100 million, then thrown another few million at back wages, and now sitting in the dark flipping a coin like a guy waiting for his takeout order. Anya walked to the desk. Light's son. Hesser what? Former assistant to the transport minister. Civil engineering degree from the University of New South Wales. She stepped half aside. The old channel maps for Burad Port. He's the one who drew them. The coin in my hand stopped spinning. The coin stopped in my palm. I swung my feet off the desk and leaned forward. Got the maps? Hesser stepped up and unrolled a yellowed channel chart across the desk. Red circles marked the problem spots. Depth lines everywhere like a topographic nightmare. Your Majesty, this section is the worst. He pressed his finger on the outer port entrance. The channel was designed for 12 meters. Right now the shallowest point is down to 8. No cargo ship is getting through that. He traced the red line inward. 3 days to restore 12 meters using manpower alone? Impossible. Workers can clear debris, measure depth, pull out driftwood and rocks, but the deep mud needs a proper dredging vessel. Also, without unloading equipment, there's no way to get that much grain off the ships. I tapped the desk twice. The grain isn't loose bulk. Hesser stopped. 50-kilo bags of wheat and soybeans. Frozen meat is in cold chain containers, can be crane lifted or passed down by human chain. He looked at the map, then back at me. Bagged grain. That works. If the ship docks and we set up gangplanks, we can organize relay lines. Speed picks up fast. His finger landed on the berth positions. No port cranes is survivable, but the channel has to be cleared first. And then there's transport. Anya stood by the desk, arms crossed. The entire country has 7 working trucks. Hesser wiped sweat off his forehead. 2 of those are in the repair shop. Missing parts. Will 5 be enough? They'll have to be. Hesser pulled the map toward the city. Pickups, farm vehicles, 3-wheelers, handcarts, commandeer, everything. Port to city, 3 routes. First route hits City Hall and King's Square, densest population. Second route goes to South Burad where there are abandoned warehouses we can convert into temporary grain storage. Third route pushes east to the coastal towns so we don't bottleneck everything inside the capital. He tapped the south end. Frozen meat goes to the national cold storage first. Power supply is unstable there. Diesel for the generators has to be priority 1. Wheat gets distributed by household. Soybeans go to the oil press factory in the south. The equipment still works. Get cooking oil production running immediately. Anya took the chart and reviewed it. Backup diesel for the cold storage lasts 10 days maximum. I looked up. Buy more. Diesel, generators, refrigerated trucks. Make a list. She paused. Right now? Right now? I turned to Hesser. How do we attack the channel? He flattened the map. Tonight, get the Port Authority people to resurvey depth. Confirm how far in the cargo ships can actually reach. Tomorrow at 6 a.m., first wave hits the port. Fishing boats drag nets to clear floating debris. Divers inspect the old berths. Engineering crew fixes gangplanks and mooring posts. Before the heavy machinery arrives, humans don't dig deep channels. We just clear the work surface. When the dredging ship shows up, they follow the survey data and cut straight through. I nodded. Do it. I looked at Light. Everyone in the square reports to Hesser. Light tucked his briefcase under his arm. Understood. Hesser rolled up the maps and headed for the stairs. At the landing, he dropped his voice. Father, the $94 million of grain. It's really been purchased? Light didn't slow down. Money's been paid. Chinese cargo ships have already changed course. If you mess up the port, 3 ships sit in open water with nowhere to go. Hester touched the old Nokia in his pocket. $2,200 of back pay still sitting in his account. The money was real. The grain was real. He gripped the maps and flew downstairs. Outside City Hall, the square was still buzzing. Civil servants who'd just received their back pay were clustered below the balcony, some staring at their phones, some clutching old file folders, some already carrying tools from home. Hester climbed onto the balcony and grabbed the rusty tin megaphone. Transport. Port Authority. Engineering. Get over here. The crowd surged forward. Tomorrow, 6 a.m., West Coast Deepwater Port. Bring tools, gloves, waterproof gear. If you have a vehicle, drive it. 3-wheelers count. First ones to the port get paid first and eat first. Someone yelled from the crowd. Is it still $20 a day? Hester squeezed the megaphone. Yes. Sign up tonight. The square erupted into motion. People sprinting home. People calling relatives. A few gray-haired old dock workers shoved to the front, grabbing Hester, asking about berth positions, channel depth, tugboat status. Upstairs, the ceiling fan kept wheezing. Zhou Jinning's phone buzzed. She forwarded an email to me. Mr. Yi, the Oceania division found 2 Australian engineering companies. I opened the attachment. Long quote sheet. 2 excavators for loaders, water pumps, generators, and emergency repair tools. Airlifted to Burad Airport within 2 days. Package price, $5 million. 1 tugboat, 1 small dredging vessel. Earliest arrival day, 3 at Burad's outer waters. Price, $20 million. Anya leaned over to look at the screen. She read the first line and slammed her hand on the desk. An old teacup jumped. They think we're idiots. 2 used excavators for $5 million? The machines themselves aren't worth $800,000. The rest is all markup on shipping and emergency service fees. The tugboat and dredger are even worse. $20 million. They know we're desperate to get grain ships docked, so they jacked the price to the stratosphere. Zhou Jinning took the phone and read through it. They attached conditions. Deposit paid tonight. They fly out tomorrow morning. Past midnight, equipment goes to another project. Anya's face could have frozen the ocean. This isn't business. This is holding Gamajila by the throat and squeezing. I closed the email. Buy it. Anya spun around. $25 million. For grossly overpriced equipment that might not even arrive in time. Might not arrive in time. And we still buy it. I stood up and walked to the old map on the wall. My finger landed on the West Coast port. Port doesn't open. Grain doesn't come in. This time it's grain. Next time it's diesel, medicine, building materials, machinery. If Gamajila wants to survive, the port has to work. Anya stared at the map. Said nothing. I turned around. Replied to the email. Equipment arrives on time or else. Add penalty clauses to the contract. For every hour they're late, the liquidated damages hit so hard their grandchildren feel it. Anya crossed her arms. And the deposit? The treasury has $320. Who's paying? I pulled out my phone. Account number. She hesitated. What account number? The fiscal account. Give it to me. She read out a string of digits. I typed it in. Copy. Paste. Amount. $3 million. Zhou Jinning stood beside me, silent. Anya watched the screen. You're transferring $3 million? $2 million locks in the equipment. I completed verification. The remaining $1 million stays with the port operations. Diesel, vehicle repairs, temporary warehouses, worker meals. Don't wait until you're broke to come knocking on my door. The phone chimed. Transfer complete. I set it on the desk. Money's there. Anya's phone buzzed. She opened the text. Your fiscal account received a transfer of $3 million on August 15th at 1945. Current available balance, $3,320. The office went silent for a few seconds. She checked the account name, the amount, and the balance. Twice. $3 million. Enough to fill the kingdom's most urgent holes from the past several years. And this was after I'd bought $94 million in grain and paid out over $2 million in back wages. Now I'd casually toss $3 million more into the national treasury like spare change into a tip jar. Anya pocketed her phone. I'll go sign the contracts now. She walked to the door and stopped. If they dare delay the equipment, I'll make them vomit the deposit back up with interest. That's my girl. I mean, auntie. I raised my hand. Wait. She turned. I pointed at myself. Then at the crumbling, paint-peeling, mold-smelling excuse for an office around us. Where am I sleeping tonight? Where am I sleeping tonight? Anya tucked the equipment contracts into her folder without looking up. The palace has been abandoned for a year. No water, no electricity, nobody's cleaned it. I pointed at her. Then where do you sleep? City Hall attic. Top floor. She walked toward the hallway. There's a partition. You'll survive one night. Zhou Jining trailed behind us, clutching her folder, then tugged Anya's sleeve in the dark corridor. Your Highness, could I also stay in the attic? Anya stopped. Fair point. Couldn't exactly make a Chinese diplomat sleep on a conference table. Keep up. The attic was even smaller than I expected. One single iron-frame bed against the wall, mattress caved in on one side. The other half of the room was stacked with old newspapers, broken chairs, and boxes of damp files. I dragged out a bamboo sleeping mat and laid it in the partition. Zhou Jining took the iron bed. Anya gave us a look that said, "Good night, try not to die," and headed back downstairs to review accounts, equipment deposits, port fees, worker meals, diesel purchases. I lay on the mat and rolled over. The wooden floor was hard, damp, and smelled like mildew and old paper. I'd rented basements in China. I'd napped on folding cots in the office break room. This place had exactly one advantage over all of them: free ocean breeze. Midnight. A chime rang in my head. Valid citizen count finalized. 1 million. Daily income distributing. My phone buzzed. Bank of China. Your account received 100 million US dollars. I checked the balance. $100,300,000. The grain purchase, back wages, and treasury transfer had nearly wiped me out during the day. Now I was fully reloaded. Like a video game character respawning with full health and max gold. Money sitting in a bank account earns the bank interest and does nothing for me. Gamajila needed food, medicine, diesel, a port, and people who could work. I sat up on my mat and knocked on the iron bed railing. Zhou Jining, you awake? She rolled over under her thin blanket. Of course she wasn't asleep. Today had been too insane for sleep. This morning the country's entire balance was $320. By afternoon I'd spent almost 100 million. And now the freshly crowned king was sitting by her bed in the dark. She pushed hair behind her ear. Not sleeping. What do you need, mister? Yi. I pulled over a folding chair and sat down. Contact somebody back home. Find me the 3 big oil companies. She blinked. Who? PetroChina, Sinopec, Sinuk. Any of them. I counted on my fingers. Burat Airport has a 4E runway that can't stay dry. Aviation kerosene, diesel, storage tanks, fuel trucks. Find out who has stock and how fast they can deliver. Whatever stray thoughts had been floating through her head vanished instantly. It's 10 p.m. in Beijing. So what? Half of China is still working overtime right now. I tapped the desk. Also contact some state-owned enterprises. Port builders, road builders, bridge builders, power grid people, telecom people. Ask if they want a contract in the South Pacific. She hugged her blanket. I'm a civil servant from the ministry's Oceania division. And now that we've established diplomatic relations, there needs to be trade. This is your job. I pushed my cracked android toward her. Get this done, and tomorrow I'll personally call Deputy Minister Hua to praise you by name. She stared at the phone with its shattered screen. Then she surrendered, climbed out of bed, and dug out her encrypted phone. By the time she reached Hua, it was past 10 p.m. Beijing time. She laid out the situation clearly. Airport runway partially usable. Port under emergency repair. Country desperately needs aviation fuel, diesel, generators, construction equipment, cold chain gear, and infrastructure teams. Hua's response: I'll send you a contact list tomorrow morning. Zhou Jining didn't stop there. She opened WeChat. Her pinned contact was labeled Chairman Zhou. She stared at the chat box for a few seconds, then typed, Zhou Jining, you awake? Instant reply. Chairman Zhou, my darling daughter. You finally want to talk to Daddy? How's Oceania? Want me to send someone to bring you home? Zhou Jining. Stop. There's a country in the South Pacific that needs ports, roads, hospitals, power, and telecom built. Cash payment. Money is not a problem. Yes or no? Chairman Zhou. Which country? Zhou Jining. Gamajila. Chairman Zhou. Never heard of it. Legit? Zhou Jining. Today alone they spent over $100 million on grain, equipment rental, and back wages. King paid from his personal account. The chat went silent for a few minutes. Typing indicator kept flickering. Half an hour later, a document arrived. Gamajila Engineering Preparedness Teams and Transport Plan. 3 construction crews. Available equipment. Technical personnel rosters. Shipping routes. Airlift routes. Equipment pricing. Shortest mobilization timeline. She scrolled to the last page. Her father had added one line. Chairman Joe, tell that king, money arrives, people and equipment arrive. She forwarded the file to her work email. The moment she set her phone down, footsteps came up the stairs. Anya was back. Zhou Jianing scooted deeper into the bed to make room. The door opened, but Anya didn't go to the iron bed. She walked straight into MY partition. Zhou Jianing's ears perked up like radar dishes. No lights on in the partition. Give me your hand. I scooted backward. For what? That iron railing on the balcony was covered in rust spikes. You gripped it for your entire speech. You think I'm blind? She grabbed my right hand. Small wound. Gamagila has no tetanus vaccine. The hospital's been out of antibiotics for 3 months. If you want to die, don't do it in City Hall. I can't afford your funeral. She pulled out the crystal dagger. You're digging out splinters with that thing? It couldn't cut steak. Shut up. Hold still. Go easy. Have you done this before? I've pulled thorns out of military dogs' paws. And that's the same thing? Close enough. Am I a dog? Dogs are cheaper to feed. Dogs don't cost me $100 million. That was MY money. It's Gamagila's money now. Zhou Jianing pulled the blanket over her head. She knew Anya was removing splinters from my hand. Objectively, medically, completely innocent. But the sounds coming from the partition, rustling fabric, whispered arguments, the occasional sharp inhale, were not helping her maintain professional composure. Eventually, Anya walked out, a tiny smear of blood on her fingers. She slid the dagger back into its sheath. Don't touch dirty water tomorrow. I lay on my mat. I'll go to the port and hand out pay. No water. She paused. Hand out pay? Workers put in a full day? I promised daily settlement. Can't break that. She didn't argue. She sat on the edge of the iron bed, opened her account ledger, and started reviewing numbers. The attic fell quiet except for pages turning. Next morning, Burad West Coast Port. Dawn. The dirt road leading to the port was already jammed. People carrying shovels, dragging ropes, driving 3-wheeled farm trucks. One guy brought a kitchen spatula and a crowbar. Hester stood in the bed of a pickup, megaphone in hand. Tools left. No tools right. Engineering crew to berth 1. Divers register at berth 2. No chaos. Thousands of hands, all waiting for one result. In 3 days, grain ships would reach Burad's outer waters. If the port couldn't open, food would float on the ocean and everyone knew it. By afternoon, a massive rumble shook the air over Burad Airport. An Ilyashin IL-76 transport plane touched down on the 4E runway. Doors opened. 2 excavators, for loaders, water pumps, generators, and emergency repair gear rolled out one after another. Airport workers lined the tarmac. Some hadn't seen a plane this size in 3 years. Others stared at the fresh paint on the excavator treads like they were looking at Christmas morning. Anya stood in front of the equipment with a checklist, verifying serial numbers one by one. For 3 years, she'd agonized over whether to replace a single tractor tire. Now millions of dollars of machinery sat on the runway. Meanwhile, I jumped out of a pickup at the West Coast port, left hand carrying a black canvas bag. Hester ran over, covered in mud from the waist down. Your Majesty, the shallows are half cleared. Old mooring posts at berth 1 are still usable, but berth 2 has 2 old cables stuck underwater. If we can't get them out tonight, the tugboat will have trouble entering tomorrow. I unzipped the canvas bag. Stacks of U.S. bills. $200,000 cash. Tell everyone to stop working. Hester froze. Your Majesty, we're running out of time. Won't take long. I set the bag on the pickup's hood. Payday. Hester raised the megaphone. I'll stop. Workers climbed out of the mud one by one. Thousands gathered around the truck. I stood in the truck bed. Yesterday, I said $20 a day. Today the job isn't finished, but the pay goes out anyway. I grabbed a stack of bills. Line up. The port went silent for a few seconds. Then it exploded. Someone threw their shovel on the ground. Someone wiped mud off their face. Someone stood frozen, asking the person next to them to confirm they weren't hallucinating. An old dock worker was first in line. He wiped both hands on his pants before accepting the $20 bill. Then he stared at it for a long time. 3 years. The kingdom owed wages, owed bonuses, owed promises. Nobody believed money would actually land in their hands anymore. I handed out the last bill and tossed the empty bag back into the truck. You got paid. I pointed at the channel. Tonight, clear those cables from berth 2. Tomorrow morning, the tugboat enters port. Thousands of workers raised shovels, ropes, and crowbars. We can. Long live the king. Long live Gamagila. The port roared back to life. Generators thundering. excavator arms slamming into mud, transport trucks shuttling scrap metal and driftwood to the dump site. After dark, I sat on the roof of the pickup, drinking a bottle of water Hesser handed me. In the distance, the northern toxic fog pressed against the mountain ridges like a wall of bad news. My phone buzzed. Current valid citizens, 1 million. Next income in 4 hours. A few seconds later, another notification. Host has spent $100 million. Reward, 1 national talent tree point. I twisted the bottle cap and looked north. 1 talent point for every 100 million spent. The system was basically telling me, keep buying things, keep unlocking upgrades. Fine by me. Gamajila had plenty of things to buy. I was sitting on the pickup truck roof when the system gave me my reward for spending $100 million. 1 talent point. 100 million bucks, and I got a single point, like a loyalty stamp at a coffee shop where you need 50 to get a free latte. The talent tree was floating in my vision. Citizen happiness was already maxed out at level 10. I looked at the other options. The port had thousands of people knee-deep in mud doing backbreaking labor all night. They needed strong bodies more than happy feelings. I tapped Citizen Physical Body. 1 talent point consumed. Physical Body upgraded to level 1. All valid citizens receive enhanced stamina, fatigue resistance, and muscle endurance. Down at berth 2, an old dock worker named Old McSomething was waist-deep in seawater, trying to yank a cable out of a rock crack. He'd been at it for 5 hours. His back was screaming, his arms were jelly, and the guys next to him were barely moving. Then it hit them all at once. The cable that felt like it was welded to the ocean floor suddenly slid out half a meter. Old Mac's back pain faded like someone turned down a volume knob. The young guys next to him started shaking their arms, confused. Did you feel that? I was about to throw up from exhaustion, and now I feel like I just woke up from a nap. Is there medicine in this water? Old Mac turned and looked at me sitting on the pickup in the distance. The young king who'd just handed out $20 bills in cash. He pressed his hands together, thumbs to his forehead. It's the king. He brought real money and divine power to Gamajila. Everyone around him stopped working and bowed in my direction. Here's the thing about faith. When you're starving, it's worthless. But when your belly's full, your pocket has cash, and your body genuinely feels stronger, faith becomes steel. I didn't notice any of that, because a military green Jeep was barreling down the dirt road toward me, kicking up a dust cloud tall enough to qualify as weather. The door flew open before the vehicle fully stopped. Anya jumped out, mud splattered on her uniform, a satellite telegram crumpled in her fist. Problem: I hopped off the truck. Equipment delayed, the grain ship. She slapped the telegram on the hood. The first cargo vessel, the one with 50,000 tons of wheat flour, caught a favorable current and went full speed. It'll reach Burad's outer waters tomorrow at dawn. A full day ahead of schedule. I looked at the telegram. That's early, yes, but the dredging ship and tugboat from New Zealand hit a storm and won't arrive until tomorrow noon. The gap punched me in the face. Grain ship, dawn. Dredging equipment, noon. 12 hours of nothing in between. Hesser was directing scrap metal removal. He came splashing through the mud. Light wobbled over from the other direction, briefcase tucked under his arm. I shoved the telegram at Hesser. Wheat ship arrives at dawn. Tugboat arrives at noon. Can the channel handle the ship? Hesser read the times. His face did something between a smile and a sob. The expression of a man watching his house catch fire while holding a garden hose. No. He unrolled the soaking wet channel map and pointed to the narrowest section. Your Majesty, the heavy equipment doesn't arrive until noon. Tonight we can clear obstacles around the berths using manpower, but the main channel, the narrowest point, is only 50 meters wide, and we can't dig through the deep mud. By hand. A 50,000-ton cargo ship drafts at least 12 meters. Without a tugboat in front to guide and control its angle, the ship has to power through on its own. If it drifts 2 or 3 meters off the line, it plows straight into the mud banks on either side. Anya added the cherry on top. Unless the captain can navigate into Burad blindfolded, it's a 100% chance of running aground. And if it gets stuck, the entire channel is blocked. The other 2 ships carrying meat and soybeans can't even enter the outer waters. Hesser wiped mud off his face. That's the situation. I stared at the map. 50,000 tons of wheat. The whole country was counting on it. If the ship arrived and sat offshore because it couldn't get in, every dollar I'd spent and every promise I'd made became a punchline. What about buoys? I tapped the edge of the map. Line up floating markers along the channel boundaries. Give the captain a visual guide. As long as he follows the buoys, he stays on course. Won't work. Hester shot it down instantly. A 50,000-ton ship's propeller creates massive suction. Buoys are too small and light. The water displacement would suck them straight into the propeller along with their anchor ropes. Then you're not just grounded, you need hull repairs. Dead end. The area around the pickup went quiet. In the distance, excavators rumbled and searchlight beams swept the water, illuminating murky brown soup. I leaned on the hood, eyes following a searchlight beam as it crossed the breakwater. Parked along the wall, a long row of old fishing boats. Over 100 of them, big and small, tied to shore with frayed ropes. Every fisherman in Gamajila's fleet. A phrase jumped into my head from ancient Chinese history. Battle of Red Cliffs. Iron chain formation. I straightened up and pointed at those boats. Buoys are too small and get sucked in. What about using ships? Hester froze. Ships? Yes. I walked to the map and drew 2 parallel lines along both sides of the channel with my finger. Call in every working fishing boat in the country. Tie them bow to stern with cables into 2 straight lines. Position them along the safe boundary at the 14-meter depth mark, stretching all the way out to open water. Fishing boats have deep drafts and heavy displacement. The cargo ship's propeller can't suck them in. 2 living walls. Guide rails made of boats. The cargo ship drives straight down the middle. If it drifts, the fishing boats are right there blocking it. Anya's eyes widened. Light's briefcase fell into the mud. Hester stared at the map, breathing harder and harder. Using fishing boats as a shipping lane. This wasn't in any textbook. This wasn't in any manual. This was the kind of idea that gets you either a medal or a court-martial. But in a broken port with no tugboat, no GPS positioning, and a lighthouse that didn't work, it might be the only way to blind guide a 50,000-ton ship through a mud-choked channel. Theoretically, Hester swallowed hard. Theoretically it works. Then stop theorizing. I cut him off. Get your best hydrologist. I want confirmation in 30 minutes. Hester grabbed the map and sprinted toward berth 2. Light picked up his briefcase and wheezed after him. Anya looked at me. You understand the risk? Those fishing boats are most of Gamajila's livelihood. If the cargo ship loses control or the water flow calculation is wrong, those boats get crushed like tin cans. I leaned against the truck door, checked the time on my cracked phone. If we don't do this, tomorrow everyone gets to stare at 50,000 tons of flowers sitting on the horizon while eating nothing. 30 minutes later, Hester came running back. 3 gray-haired maritime specialists behind him. We ran the numbers. He unrolled a freshly annotated chart. Current tidal conditions at Burad, plus the drag coefficient of the fishing boats, if the cargo ship enters. At 3 knots or less, 120 boats linked into twin guidelines can absorb the water displacement. IT works. His voice cracked with barely contained excitement. Then his face collapsed again. But Your Majesty, it's not a guaranteed thing. If the wind shifts suddenly, or the cargo ship's rudder reacts half a second slow, hitting the fishing boats is the small problem. If the hull drifts too far and hits the shallow banks. Hester looked up, eyes bloodshot. A 50,000-ton ship stuck in the channel. Rescue fees and delay penalties alone run hundreds of thousands a day. If the hull breaches and the wheat gets soaked in seawater, we're looking at tens of millions in damages. We can't afford that. Anya stood silently beside him. The National Treasury could barely hold the $3 million I'd given it. If we owed tens of millions, Gamajila would have to sell all 18 outer islands. And nobody would buy them. Every eye turned to me. Sea wind blew in, thick with salt and diesel. I didn't look at the map. I turned toward berth 2. Under the searchlights, dozens of men in shredded wetsuits, or just shirtless, had roped themselves to rocks. Waves smashed them underwater again and again. They surfaced, spat out salt water, and went right back to prying scrap iron from the seabed with crowbars. On shore, women pushed rusted carts, hauling mud and garbage load after load. Nobody slacking. Nobody complaining. They thought the strength flowing through their bodies was a miracle. It was actually a data upgrade I'd bought for $100 million. But their effort, that was 100% real. The desperation in their eyes, the need to eat, the will to survive, no system gave them that. I turned back to Hesser. I took off my glasses, folded them, and slipped them into my shirt pocket. The mild-mannered office worker vanished. Under the searchlight's harsh side angle, my bone structure cast hard shadows, the kind of face that doesn't negotiate. Hesser, Do you think I spent $94 million on grain so it could float on the ocean as decoration? His back snapped straight like someone had yanked a string. Your Majesty, that's not what I... Then do what I said. I tapped the channel entrance on the map, 2 hard knocks. Damages? I'm not afraid of damages. If it runs aground, I'll pay the penalties. I'll pay the rescue. If the ship breaks, I'll buy a new one. I locked onto his eyes, voice cutting through the distant machinery noise. What I'm afraid of is, tomorrow morning when the sun comes up, these people who spent all night soaking in mud will look out and see 50,000 tons of wheat sitting right there in front of their faces, and they still can't get a single piece of bread. Hesser's throat clenched so hard I could see it from 3 feet away. The 3 old maritime specialists dropped to one knee in the mud, fists pressed to their foreheads, eyes red. Anya turned away and looked at the figures bobbing in the dark water. Her fingers slowly curled into a fist at her side. Go tie the boats. I rolled up the map and shoved it into Hesser's arms. Tell every fisherman, if a boat gets damaged, I'll replace it with 2 new ones. Tomorrow at dawn, I'm standing on that dock watching the ship come in. Hesser clutched the map and took off running toward the crowd like his shoes were on fire. Port Authority, all boat owners, grab your cables. Get in the water. Tie the boats. The entire port erupted. Hundreds of flashlight beams sliced through the night sky, converging on the breakwater like a swarm of fireflies with purpose. I stood in place, watching the silhouettes of people dragging ropes and sprinting toward their fishing boats. Their passion, their hunger, their desperate energy, something shifted inside my chest. A feeling I didn't have a name for yet. Something that had nothing to do with the system, the money, or the talent points. Something that made me want to make this work. Not for the $100 million a day. Not for the upgrades. For them. Hesser was waist-deep in the ocean, screaming himself hoarse. 3rd boat on the left. Push it 10 meters out. Don't drop the anchor yet. Get a diver down to check the positioning stake. 120 fishing boats were being lined up along both sides of the channel. Iron rings threaded through thick cables. Locks clamped shut. Bow to stern to bow to stern. One after another, like a chain of rusty pearls stretching into the open sea. Divers bit down on breathing tubes and went under. They found the 14-meter depth line and hammered positioning stakes into the seabed. When they surfaced and gave the signal, fishermen on deck shoved iron anchors overboard. Boom. Water exploded upward. 2 guidelines slowly took shape. 60 boats on the left. 60 on the right. A narrow lane in the middle for the cargo ship. Every 5 boats, a set of anchor chains locked the line in place. When the tide pushed, the boats swayed, and shore crews immediately yanked correction ropes to straighten them out. I stood on the breakwater in my white shirt, wind plastering it against my back. Said nothing. Those fishing boats were most of this country's livelihood. Tomorrow at dawn, 50,000 tons of wheat would try to squeeze through that gap. If it made it in, Gamajala eats. If it ran aground, every dollar I'd spent, over 100 million, would be sitting on the ocean, useless. Hesser climbed out of the water, pants dripping mud. Your Majesty, both guidelines are anchored. 23 boats still haven't arrived. I checked the time. Keep pushing. Every boat connected before dark. Tomorrow that cargo ship doesn't drift half a meter off course. He grabbed the megaphone and charged back into the water. The chanting and shouting from the port didn't stop until noon, when the sun was directly overhead. A few beat-up 3-wheelers rolled into the port. Women in old headscarves jumped off and started handing out lunch. Workers crawled ashore one by one, some with pants still dripping, some with arms scraped raw by cable friction, some so exhausted they sat down on the rubble pile and couldn't get up. Lunch was simple. A palm-sized flatbread, baked until it could double as a frisbee. A spoonful of boiled seaweed. One dried fish the size of my middle finger. Workers squatted in the mud with cracked bowls and ate. I found a crooked coconut tree and sat against the trunk. Light appeared with his briefcase and an aluminum lunchbox. Inside, a big piece of pan-fried fish, a mound of white rice, and thick gravy poured over the top. Your Majesty, the City Hall cafeteria prepared this. Please eat. I glanced at the lunchbox. Then I looked at the port. Thousands of workers squatting in mud. One guy was breaking his dried fish in half and stuffing one piece into his kid's hand. Another was chewing flatbread so salty it looked like he was eating a salt lick. I pushed the lunchbox back. Take it away. Light blinked. Your Majesty, the fish is fresh caught. Bones have all been removed. I said take it away. I pointed at the food cart. Get me 2 flatbreads. Extra seaweed. Light didn't move. You are the king. You cannot eat laborer food. I looked up at him. Old man, if I sit here eating white rice and fried fish while everyone else chews salt bricks, by this afternoon every single one of them will know the king is not on their team. We're all soaking in the same mud. I eat special food. Who's going to break their back for me? Light opened his mouth, closed it, walked to the food cart, and came back with 2 rock-hard flatbreads and a big scoop of seaweed. I took it. The bread was dry as sandpaper. Salt crystals scraped across my tongue like tiny knives. The seaweed tasted like the ocean had sneezed into a bowl. The dried fish took so long to chew my jaw considered filing a complaint. I finished one bite and took another. This was worse than the cheapest boxed meal at the worst construction site in China. But I didn't complain. Old Mac was walking past with his cracked bowl, looking for a spot to sit. His eyes drifted to the coconut tree. The young king was sitting in the yellow dirt. White shirt smeared with dust, holding the exact same flatbread as everyone else. Old Mac stopped. His bowl slipped from his hands, hit a rock, and rolled away. A few dockworkers followed his gaze. One person stopped. Then 2. Then the entire port went quiet. Old Mac walked through the mud until he was 3 meters from me. His knees hit the gravel. Hands laced. Pressed to forehead. Forehead to ground. Long live the king. Thousands followed. The harbor echoed with a unified roar. Long live the king. Long live the king. I was still holding half a flatbread. My eyebrow twitched. All I did was skip the fancy lunch because it seemed like the practical thing to do. I did not plan to turn a piece of bread into a coronation ceremony. Everybody up, I stood and dusted off my pants. Kneeling doesn't dredge the channel deeper. Finish eating. Get back to work. Both sides of the channel fully secured by 3 p.m. Old Mac got up, grabbed his shovel, and marched toward the work site. You heard the man. The king eats the same bread we eat. Anyone who slacks OFF today, I'm personally throwing them into the ocean. The port roared back to life. Shovels into mud. Cables pulled tight. People diving in to check anchor chains. Broken tractors hauling scrap to the dump site. 2 p.m. I was standing in the shade, halfway through a bottle of water. A military green Jeep ripped into the port zone, tires skidding twin tracks of yellow dust. Light jumped out before it fully stopped, clutching his briefcase. Your Majesty. Problem. I screwed the cap back on. Grain ship hit a reef. Not the grain ship. He caught his breath. Airport tower just called. 10 minutes ago, a Bombardier business jet landed. Full Chinese livery on the fuselage. I looked up. From China, I turned to find Zhou Jianing. She came out of the temporary work shed holding a stack of files. Miss Diplomat, did your deputy minister Hua's people arrive early? Zhou Jianing flipped through her papers. No. The inspection teams from China Communications Construction, State Grid, and the telecom companies won't finish their paperwork until the day after tomorrow at the earliest. They applied for commercial charter flights, not a private jet. I turned to Light. Entry application? He shook his head. No official diplomatic note. They used technical survey as the reason for landing. The tower couldn't refuse, so the plane was allowed down. The passengers are being held by customs in the arrival shed. I tossed my water bottle into the trash. Let's go to the airport. Before getting in the car, I looked back at Light. Old man, when I arrived yesterday, did your customs people actually check my passport? Light's face flushed. Your Majesty, before your coronation, this old servant was still the foreign minister. The person I was personally escorting, no one dared to stop you. I pulled open the car door. So your foreign minister title carries some real juice. Good to know. Drive, Burad International Airport. The arrivals hall was a row of tin sheds. Roof full of holes. Turnstiles rusted solid. A few customs officers stood at the door holding rifles that looked older than the country itself. Inside the shed, absolute chaos. About 15 Chinese people crammed in there. Some carrying surveying equipment. Some holding rolled-up blueprints. Some clutching a stack of white hard hats. In the center, sitting on a broken plastic chair, was a middle-aged man. Over 6 feet tall, shoulders like a linebacker, custom-tailored suit stretched to its structural limit. Cigar between his fingers, black suitcase at his feet. I'm going to say this one more time. His Beijing accent was thick enough to spread on toast. I brought people here to build your port, fix your roads, and wire your power grid. Go get your king. We'll talk about whether the project makes sense, and then decide. A customs officer held up his rifle, completely lost. The big man rapped the table. My daughter messaged me last night. Your country needs a port, roads, and electricity. I brought engineers. I brought my whole team. And you're pointing rusty guns at us. I stopped outside the turnstile. This guy had a rough-cut face, built like a construction crane, and a temper that could melt steel. Something about him seemed familiar, but I couldn't place it. I was about to ask Zhou Jianing. Behind me, rapid footsteps. Zhou Jianing sprinted past me into the tin shed. Papers scattered everywhere. She stared at the man in the chair. Her entire body locked up. Dad? Zhou Jiangwo crushed out his cigar and stood up. Well, so you do still know how to call me Dad? The tin shed went quiet. Zhou Jianing's papers were scattered across the floor, a few sheets blowing into the turnstile and collecting dust. She stood there with her cheeks on fire, unable to look up. I glanced between her and the large man in the tailored suit. Miss Diplomat. So this is the cavalry you called in? She crouched down to pick up her files, voice small. My dad. He runs Jingxi Construction Engineering Company. The boss. Zhou Jiangwo finished the sentence himself and stepped through the turnstile. Tall, wide, suit stretched like it was begging for mercy. His leather shoes splashed through puddles on the tin shed floor. He stuck out his hand. Zhou Jiangwo. Jianing told me Gamajila needs a port, roads, and a power grid built. I brought my chief engineer and a team. Came to see if there's real work here. I shook his hand. His palm was solid calluses. They scraped against the gauze bandage on mine. My hand still hurt from last night's splinter surgery, but I didn't flinch. Yifei, Zhou Jiangwo released my hand and gave me a 2-second scan. Young guy in a faded white shirt, bandaged hand, standing in front of a leaky tin shack guarded by antique rifles. But I was standing steady. The customs guys still had their guns half-raised, unsure what to do. Light rushed forward and shoved the barrel down. Let them through. Mister. Zhou is His Majesty's honored guest. Zhou Jiangwo turned to look at the airport runway. The 4E strip was in decent shape. The UN had spent money on that years ago. But the terminal windows were shattered, the waiting area roof was bleeding rust stains, and half the runway lights were dead. Runway's got a solid foundation. UN investment shows. He pointed at the terminal building. But this terminal is worse than a county-level bus station back home. Zhou Jianing's face got even redder. Her father ignored her and headed outside. Stop standing around. Take me into town. 4 pickups and jeeps rolled out of the airport. The moment we hit the main road, Zhou Jiangwo nearly smashed his head on the roof. He grabbed the door handle and stuck his head out to examine the road surface. The route from airport to City Hall was a war crime against pavement. Potholes everywhere. Standing sewage in some sections. Truck tires flung mud half a story high. His chief engineer had a laser rangefinder out, taking notes the whole way. Mr. Zhou, this road has no base layer. Not even a gravel bed underneath. It's pure dirt. Drainage ditches are completely blocked. Rainy season hits, and the whole road dissolves. Streetlight poles are dead. All cables severed. Zhou Jiangwo sat back inside. The grain coming off those ships, it's getting transported into the city on this. The engineer shook his head. Light trucks might survive. Anything heavy and the road collapses, Zhou Jiangwo swore. This isn't a road. This is a pit with ambitions. He glanced at Zhou Jianing. You little brat. 1 trip overseas and you found your old man a monster project. She mumbled back. Nobody forced you to come. Are you talking back to me? I'm conducting diplomacy. Diplomacy that tricks your own father into road construction. She hugged her folder and shut up. 30 minutes later. City Hall, 3rd floor. The ceiling fan was doing its best impression of dying, dropping dust flakes every rotation. Wall plaster had given up on life, exposing red brick underneath. Zhou Jiangwo sat on the guest sofa, slapped the crumbling cushion, and said nothing about it. His 3 engineers had already spread out a satellite map of Burad. Anya walked in carrying cups of water, every rim chipped. Light stood beside me clutching his briefcase, spine perfectly straight. Zhou Jiangwo took a sip of water. Interesting. I've spent half my life doing projects in Africa and the Middle East. Always needed a translator. Today I'm in a meeting with a foreign kingdom, and everyone in the room speaks Chinese. Anya sat down. I started learning Chinese 3 years ago. To find the royal heir, Light added. This old servant visited China years ago. Picked up a little. Zhou Jiangwo waved his hand and pulled out a cigar case. Speaking Chinese is good. At least the translator can't skim the engineering fees. Match struck. Cigar lit. Zhou Jianing stood against the wall, face darkening. Dad, talk less. Was I wrong? He took a drag and turned to me and Anya. King Yi. Princess Anya, let me lay out the rules. I'm not here to back up my daughter, and I'm definitely not doing charity. Jingxi Construction is a private company. Thousands of people depend on me for their paychecks. Overseas projects are high risk. Contracts, funding, materials, timelines. One missing piece and the whole thing falls apart. We can do the work, but it has to follow business rules. Anya nodded. As it should. Zhou Jiangwo tapped the satellite map. As a gesture of goodwill, for Jinning's sake, we'll do the initial city planning and the port-to-airport road survey for free. Consider it a housewarming gift for Gamajila. Anya's shoulders visibly relaxed. Thank you. Gamajila genuinely needs a professional team. Zhou Jiangwo signaled his chief engineer, who picked up a red marker and drew a line across the satellite map, from the West Coast Deepwater Port all the way to the South Coast Airport. Burad's problem isn't one bad road. The entire city has no logistics backbone. Cargo comes off ships with no heavy truck route. Equipment lands at the airport with no way to move it to the port or city center. Water, power, and telecom have no unified plan. Half the lines are exposed, and one strong wind knocks everything out. City drainage is a disaster. Rainy season floods the low areas while mud slides down from the hills. Zhou Jiangwo took the red pen. Getting rich starts with building roads. That's not a slogan. It's physics. Port opens. Food, diesel, medicine, and building materials can enter. Airport opens. Equipment, engineers, and technicians can arrive. But if the connection between port and airport doesn't work, Gamajila stays bottlenecked at both ends forever. He circled several areas on the map. Here, Port Logistics Zone. Here, Administrative District. Here, Future Commercial Zone. Hillside housing can't be built randomly, and lowlands can't have residential. When you expand the city, draw the red lines first. When you build roads, bury water pipes, power cables, and fiber optic lines underground at the same time. Build the road today, dig it up tomorrow to add pipes, then repave it the day after. That kind of stupidity is not happening on my watch. I listened, tapping the desk. Zhou Jiangwo talked like a cannon, but his gut was full of real knowledge. Port was the materials gateway. Airport was the personnel and high-value equipment gateway. Without connecting those two lifelines, Gamajila would choke on its own geography no matter how much money it had. Mr. Zhou, how much does your whole plan cost? He tossed the red pen on the table. A lot. A whole lot. He pointed at the city center. Main roads completely rebuilt with underground utilities, 3 billion yuan minimum. Full Burad road network redesign, 20 billion baseline. Deep water port expansion, storage yards, warehouses, cold chain, port roads, breakwater, loading equipment, another massive chunk. Airport terminal, fuel depot, cargo zone, airport expressway, all need work. Then add water treatment plants, hospitals, schools, public facilities, and disaster prevention systems. He held up one finger. Rebuild all of Burad to a 50-year standard. 100 billion yuan. Starting price. The office went silent. Anya sat rigid. 100 billion yuan. Roughly 14 billion US dollars. Gamajila's annual GDP was 10 billion, weighed down by 9 billion in debt. Yesterday, the treasury had $320. She was still counting port workers' meals on her fingers. 100 billion yuan landed on her like a mountain dropped from space. Mr. Zhou, her voice came out dry. Our current finances can't support a project this large. Could we start with basic dirt roads? Zhou Jiangwo shook his head immediately. Dirt roads are useless. Heavy trucks destroy them in 3 days. You've got grain, oil, steel, and cement to haul. Dirt won't hold. Every yuan you save gets spent twice on rebuilding. Anya pressed her temples and went quiet. Then she looked at me. I sat behind the desk, took a sip of cold water. The system deposited $100 million every day. 100 billion yuan didn't need to come out all at once. But the first lifeline had to break ground immediately. 50 million USD wasn't buying excavators or cement ships. It was buying Zhou Jiangwo's construction crews, his equipment supply chain, his transport capacity, and the first thread of trust from China's infrastructure world toward Gamajila. Money isn't Mr. Zhou's problem to worry about. I set down the water cup. This project, we can afford it. Zhou Jiangwo held his cigar without responding. He'd worked in plenty of poor countries. Leaders there loved talking about international metropolises, financial centers, and world-class ports during planning meetings. When it came time to sign contracts and pay deposits, crickets. The poorer the client, the bigger the empty promises. King Yi, let me be honest. Verbal promises are worthless. In overseas engineering, the thing we fear most is a client who talks big up front and then the money dries up. He pointed out the window. Gamajila has no credit rating. Government finances are functionally dead. My people need to eat. Equipment needs renting. Ships need booking. Materials need purchasing. I can't let thousands of workers gamble their salaries. Anya didn't argue. The words were harsh, but they were true. The three engineers started rolling up the maps. Zhou Jining panicked, waving at her father. Dad, don't refuse yet. Yifei, Zhou Jiangwo raised his hand. Jining, engineering is not a game. I stood up and walked to the satellite map. I pressed one hand on the red line between the port and the airport. Mr. Zhou plays by the rules. I'll play by the rules too. Full city rebuild, not yet. First, design the main road from port to airport. 6 lanes, high-quality concrete, heavy truck-rated, rainy season-proof, underground corridors pre-laid for water, power, and telecom. Zhou Jiangwo didn't answer immediately. I kept going. Once the design passes review and the formal contract is signed, I'll give Jingxi Construction $50 million as a first-phase mobilization payment. Dedicated funds only. Lock in equipment, book transport ships, assemble the construction crew, procure the first batch of materials. After work begins on site, payments settle at each project milestone. Anya shot to her feet. Her chair scraped the floor like a scream. Yifei, $50 million. I raised my hand, gesturing for her to sit back down. Zhou Jiangwo's cigar froze in midair. Ash fell onto his suit pants. The three engineers turned to statues. $50 million. First phase mobilization. Paid upon design approval. This wasn't an offer a normal client could make. Zhou Jiangwo was silent for a few seconds. He tapped his cigar ash into the tray. King Yi, talk is cheap. What scares us most in overseas work is a client who sounds great at the start, and then the funding evaporates. I opened the desk drawer and took out my phone. Cracked screen and all. Set it on the table. Mr. Zhou, this is MY Gamajila. Not one of those projects that stiff contractors on payments and drive construction crews to jump off buildings. I pressed my hand on the phone, voice level. Here, money arrives before the work does. Never late. Zhou Jiangwo stared at that beat-up phone with its shattered screen. After a moment, he crushed out his cigar. All right, then I'll put my words on the table too. The moment that first mobilization payment hits our account, Jingxi Construction's people, equipment, and shipping, I'll handle it personally. He picked up the red pen and drew a heavy line over the port-to-airport route. But before we sign anything, I need to see for myself whether your account actually has 50 million in it. I pushed my cracked Android to the center of the desk. Bank of China app still glowing. Available balance, $62 million. The office went quiet for a few seconds. Zhou Jiangwo picked up the phone, looked at the number, set it back down. 62 million in cash. Not a promise. Not a loan application. Not some fantasy about future tax revenue. Money. Sitting. Right. There. He pulled out a cigar cutter from his jacket. Click. Snipped the tip off a fresh cigar. This island was a disaster in every measurable way. Airport leaking air. Port choked with mud. Roads that were basically organized potholes. The king wore a shirt so faded it was practically transparent, carried a phone with a screen like a shattered windshield, and had $62 million in his pocket. The number one fear in overseas construction? Client has no money. Number two fear? Client says they have money, signs the contract, then starts ghosting. This young king could at least cover the upfront mobilization. That was enough. Zhou Jiangwo tossed the cigar cutter on the table. All right, money shows up, people show up. He pushed himself off the sofa and waved at his three engineers. Grab your gear. Port, airport, road survey. Let's move. Anya sat at the long table, hands still pressed on her ledger. Mr. Zhou, City Hall only has 2 jeeps available. Zhou Jiangwo turned around. Anya pulled out a receipt book. They were just fueled up. $100 per vehicle per day. Zhou Jiangwo stood there with a cigar between his fingers for a very long time. Zhou Jining raised her hand to cover her forehead and quietly sidestepped toward the wall, trying to become invisible. Princess Anya, I brought an entire engineering team here to build you tens of billions worth of infrastructure. And you're charging me $200 for car rental, separate line items. Anya pushed the receipt book forward. Kingdom finances are independently audited. Zhou Jiangwo stared at her for 2 full seconds, pulled $200 bills from his wallet, and slapped them on the table. Fine. You know what? Your accounting is cleaner than half the clients I've worked with back home. Anya pocketed the cash, tore off a receipt, and handed it over. Keys will be delivered shortly. I leaned back in my chair and barely managed to hold in a laugh. This woman's penny counting drove people insane. But every cent owed got collected. Put someone like that in charge of the treasury, and you don't have to worry about someone selling the country and helping the buyer count the change. 3 p.m. 2 jeeps left City Hall. Wheels hit puddles. Passengers bounced off the ceiling. Zhou Jiangwo's engineers were already working. Drone in the air. Rangefinders, soil samplers, and clipboards everywhere. The chief engineer crouched by the roadside, grabbed a fistful of wet dirt, and squeezed. Mr. Zhou, the soil layer here is soft with high moisture content. If we pave directly, heavy trucks will cause the surface to buckle within days. Road base needs gravel replacement, and drainage trenches need to go deeper. Zhou Jiangwo nodded and scribbled in his notebook. 2-meter trenches enough? Main roads, yes. Low-lying areas need more. Rainy season runoff has to be channeled into the river system and retention ponds, not onto the road. I sat in the back seat listening carefully. I don't know engineering, but I know what it's like to be broke. Poor people can't afford to waste money. A cheap road that falls apart next year isn't saving. It's throwing cash into the ocean. The Jeep reached the West Coast port perimeter. I got out and sat on a boulder by the roadside. Hester squatted next to me, drawing port routes in the mud with a stick. Zhou Jiangwo rolled down his window. King Yi, hop in. We'll survey together. I got in the back. Hester climbed in too, smearing mud from his pants onto the seat edge. Light sat in the front passenger seat, looked back at his son, and silently handed him some tissues. I cracked open a water bottle. Old man, why are you riding along? Light sat up straight. This old servant is translating for Hester. The transport ministry will be working with Chinese engineering teams daily. Hester knows civil engineering, I know Chinese. We fill the gaps, I nodded. Hester had a civil engineering degree from the University of New South Wales. Got driven out by unpaid wages and ended up catching fish to feed his family. Now the port was coming alive. A guy like him couldn't stay buried in the wreckage. Fine. You two hold the fort for now. Going forward, Hester takes on more transport ministry work. Hester's hand froze mid-wipe. Light turned to look at his son, but said nothing. The Jeep headed west. Port, airport, the Shun River, city center, empty land. All captured by drone and loaded into a tablet. 5 p.m. City Hall, 3rd floor. Broken windows letting in ocean wind. Papers on the desk flapping like panicked birds. Zhou Jiangwo picked up a satellite image and overlaid it with his hand-drawn planning sketch. Drove the whole loop this afternoon. King Yi, this place has decent bones underneath all the rot. Red pen dropped. Starting from the South Coast Airport, following the Shun River west, through the city center, straight to the West Coast Deepwater Port. 10 kilometers. The red line didn't stop. He extended it another 10 kilometers westward. Airport to port. Port extending west. Coastline pushed 2 kilometers inland. Total area, 40 square kilometers. The red pen carved out a massive zone on the map. West Coast Industrial Park. Hester leaned forward over the table. The whole thing as an industrial zone. Yes. Zhou Jiangwo pointed at the open sea. Ocean current here flows east to west. Factories on the west coast sit downstream of your Shun River. Food processing, oil pressing, water treatment, cold chain, bonded warehouses, all fit inside. Future steel and building material processing too. City center doesn't have to eat dust and smell fumes. Light translated everything into Gamma instantly. Hester slapped his own thigh. This is how that land should have been used. Port, airport, river, all connected. He snatched the red pen and started marking positions along the industrial park's edge. Storage zones, staging areas, freight corridors, port connector roads. He'd had these ideas rattling around in his head for years. A transport ministry employee who couldn't even get a proper map, let alone approval to plan anything. Zhou Jiangwo's one red line stitched together everything Hester had been carrying for years. Light translated Hester's additions and added, Mr. Zhou, the West Coast only has one subsidiary island offshore. As long as the tourism zone isn't placed on that island, the industrial park barely affects tourism potential. Zhou Jiangwo nodded. This kid knows his stuff. He rolled up his sleeves and pointed at the main line in the center of the map. But the industrial park is just land. Land becomes money only with roads. Port to airport plus the Western Park access road. 20 kilometers total. Anya hadn't touched the planning map. She opened her ledger. Mr. Zhou, how much? He set the red pen down. Heavy trucks need to run. Dirt roads won't work. Regular asphalt won't work either. Has to be high-grade concrete. 6 lanes both directions. Underground corridors pre-laid for water, power, and telecom. 20 kilometers. Materials, machinery, labor, and transport all included. He held up 4 fingers. 400 million yuan. Anya picked up her pen and started converting. Roughly 55 million USD. Halfway through writing, her pen stopped. This single project would cost more than the port rescue, grain purchase, fuel purchase, and equipment rental combined. Too expensive, she closed the ledger. Current Burad doesn't need 6 lanes. Build 2 first, expand later. Zhou Jiangwo shook his head. Can't shortcut infrastructure. 2 lanes. Heavy trucks meet each other, and both have to slow down. Once port throughput increases, the whole road jams. Expanding later means demolishing houses, relocating people, digging up old pipes. Money you saved now gets multiplied and paid back later. Anya didn't argue. She knew he was right, but the treasury couldn't handle this kind of burn rate. I leaned back, ran the numbers. 400 million yuan. The system deposited $100 million every midnight. Engineering payments didn't need to come all at once. Mobilization funds, material payments, milestone payments. Completely manageable. Money's not the issue. Anya turned to look at me. Every time money came up, it was somehow never a problem for me. She was starting to look at me the way people look at ATMs that never run out of cash. I kept my eyes on Zhou Jiangwo. How long to finish? He checked the engineer's calculation sheet. Survey, design, clearing, gravel replacement, drainage, utility corridors, concrete pouring. Standard timeline, 1.5 years. Too slow. I sat up straight. At 100 million yuan. 3 months. Nobody in the office made a sound. The engineers buried their faces in blueprints, pretending to be invisible. Zhou Jiangwo shook his head too. King Yi, money isn't everything. Concrete needs curing time. Road base needs to stabilize. Even with unlimited machinery, 3 months gets you 6 to 8 kilometers at most. After that you run out of manpower and material supply, can't keep up. I raised my hand. At another 100 million. 600 million yuan total. 3 months. Zhou Jiangwo ground his cigar into the ashtray with great ceremony. Brother, it's not that I don't want the money. Any contractor without a conscience would have grabbed it already. But I can't. My daughter is here working as your diplomat. And no amount of cash fixes a labor shortage. Bringing workers from China means visas, flights, housing. By the time everyone arrives, half your 3 months is gone. I shook my head. Visas, not needed. They get a clean criminal record certificate online, and they're approved. Flights, I'll handle it. Charter planes. 10 not enough, make it 20. One day, I opened a drawer, pulled out a population statistics report, and tossed it in front of Zhou Jiangwo. Kingdom of Gamagila population census. He glanced down. Total population, nearly 1 million. Working age adults, over 300,000. I pressed both hands on the desk. Also, I'll give you 100,000 workers. Zhou Jiangwo looked up. All 3 engineers stopped writing. 100,000, yes. I pointed toward the port. That port got cleared overnight, not because of machines. Because of people. This country is short on money and short on opportunities. It is not short on people willing to work. Zhou Jiangwo frowned. 100,000 people isn't 100,000 skilled laborers. Dump them all on a construction site at once, and it's chaos. I won't let you trade lives for deadlines. I nodded. That's why your team handles technology, safety, and machinery. Clearing, hauling, drainage ditches, gravel filling, prefab yard assistance, rebar yard support. Break the job into as many tasks as possible. Critical positions use your people. Basic positions use ours. Zhou Jiangwo said nothing. Head down, calculating fast. I pushed harder. These 100,000 workers are free to Jingxi Construction. The kingdom pays their wages. You don't carry any labor costs. Just provide 3 meals a day and standard safety equipment. Anya's ledger nearly slipped out of her hands. 100,000 workers at $20 a day each. That was a staggering expense. She opened her mouth to object. I raised my hand and cut her off. Anya, once this road is built, the grain, oil, medicine, and equipment sitting at the port can actually reach the city. This isn't wasting money. This is buying these people jobs. And infrastructure takes years. The sooner they learn skills, the sooner they earn real income. Zhou Jiangwo was quiet for a long time. 100,000 workers. Labor costs covered by the kingdom. Jingxi Construction only responsible for technical management, equipment, and materials. The risk on this contract had just been crushed to almost nothing. But 3 months for 20 kilometers of 6-lane concrete road was still not something you agree to just because there are lots of people. He picked up the red pen and traced the 20-kilometer main line on the map. 100,000 workers, fine. But I have conditions. First, everyone gets trained before they set foot on a construction site. Second, safety gear, medical stations, and site cafeterias. Every single one. No exceptions. Third, 3 months only guarantees the main road is fully passable for heavy trucks. Utility corridors and secondary works get completed on a follow-up schedule. He pressed the red pen into the map. Fourth, 50 million USD mobilization payment. Hits our account the day the contract is signed. I picked up my phone. Bring me the contract. I'm the kind of person who likes money to arrive first. Bring me the contract. The moment I said it, the arguing stopped. Anya pulled 2 blank documents stamped with the royal crest out of a drawer. She sat down and started writing. The terms were straightforward, bilingual, Chinese and English. Jingxi Construction handles surveying, design, construction management, and first batch equipment procurement for the Burad Port to Airport main road. Kingdom of Gamagila pays 50 million USD mobilization fee. 20 kilometers. Heavy truck ready. 3 months. 3 minutes later, the contract slid across to Zhou Zhengwo. He read every line. Stopped at the payment clause. King Yi, per this contract, money goes into your fiscal account first, then gets transferred to Jingxi Construction. No problem. One more thing. He tapped the paper. 3-month deadline means construction management follows the general contractor's call. Your 100,000 local workers can join, but training, safety, and scheduling are ours to decide. I nodded. You run the engineering. I handle money and people. He picked up a pen and marked the prepayment clause. Then let's sign. Anya signed. Royal Interior Ministry seal stamped down. Zhou Zhengwo signed. Jingxi Construction's red company seal landed next to it. I picked up my cracked phone. Bank of China business portal open. Recipient account. Amount. 50 million US dollars. Confirm transfer. Ding. Anya's tablet lit up. National fiscal account received. 50 million US dollars. Her hand hovered over the screen. 3 years. When she took over this country, the Treasury couldn't scrape together 1 month of dock workers' pay. 9 billion in debt pressing down on the ledger. Every expenditure calculated to the last cent. Today, $50 million entered the fiscal account. No loan. No strings attached aid package. No international organization sending auditors to question the budget. The money came from me. She looked up. I tapped the desk twice. Transfer it to Jingxi Construction. She snapped out of it, opened the fiscal portal, entered the amount, confirmed. 2 minutes later, Zhou Zhengwo's pocket buzzed. He pulled out his phone. Account ending 7788 received 50 million US dollars in foreign exchange. He stared at the number for a few seconds. 50 million. Landed. He pocketed the phone and stood up. Oldly, the chief engineer closed his notebook. Mr. Zhou, contact the domestic labor companies. I need crews with experience in high-grade highways, concrete surfaces, and integrated utility corridors. 3-month overseas project. Charter flights direct. Once people arrive, start with management and technical lead training. Gamagila has plenty of local labor. Our people take the critical positions, break basic tasks into teachable steps for the locals. Understood. Also, call Sani and XCMG. He crushed out his cigar. 2 fully automated mixing stations. Excavators, loaders, road rollers, graders, gravel equipment. Spec'd for 2-shift operation. Tell them payment is immediate on delivery. Equipment goes on the fastest ship available. Spare parts, where items, and a repair crew travel with it. I don't want equipment arriving and then waiting 2 weeks for a hydraulic hose from China. Oldly finished scribbling and hustled out. Zhou Zhengwo turned to the other 2 engineers. Contact China Communications Construction and State Grid. Send them the Burad maps, port status, Shin River location, and industrial zone plans. Tell them, big project, strong cash flow, client doesn't delay payments. Port expansion, power grid, water supply, telecom. If they're interested, come with technical proposals. Both engineers grabbed their phones and left. The office emptied in minutes. Zhou Zhengwo lit a fresh cigar and settled back onto the sofa. Kid, mind if I call you brother? Go ahead. Then I won't hold back. He blew out smoke. Overseas engineering, 2 types of clients scare me. Type 1, no money, big mouth. Type 2, has money, slow to act. You're neither. He patted the signed contract. Money arrived first. Rules laid out clear. Jingxi took the mobilization funds, so we deliver. 3 months. Main road carries heavy trucks, or we answer for it. I picked up my room temperature water and took a sip. Mr. Zhou, I'm not short on money. I'm short on time. Road doesn't open. The grain, diesel, and equipment at the port stay stuck outside. Whatever you need, make a list. As long as you're not dumping cash into the ocean, I approve it. Zhou Jiangwo ground his cigar into the ashtray. Deal. I'm not sleeping tonight. After dark, a few old streetlights flickered on outside City Hall. Bulbs so ancient they turned the steps yellow. Anya didn't come back to the office. The King's Hotel and the North Hill Royal Estate had been abandoned for months. Engineers were coming. They needed somewhere to sleep. After them, China Communications construction and state grid people would arrive. They couldn't keep stuffing visitors into leaky tin sheds. She'd sent people to nearby villages that afternoon. Almost 100 women showed up at the hotel. $20 each. Cleared weeds, scrubbed rooms, changed sheets, unclogged pipes, patched leaking window frames. Hours later, 50 guest rooms were ready. Garden garbage hauled away. Kitchen operational. 2 chandelier bulbs working in the lobby. Anya stood at the hotel entrance, heard the housekeeper's report, and recorded the expense in her ledger. $1,840. She closed the book. Money well spent. With civil servants returning, City Hall could free up more rooms for offices. Engineers and construction managers would have proper beds. Royal assets couldn't keep rotting. Zhou Jiangwo led his engineers downstairs, heading for the hotel to set up a war room. At the jeep, he noticed Zhou Jianing still standing on the steps. Jianing, get in. She clutched her files. I'm not going to the hotel. He stopped. Where are you staying? City Hall attic. I need to handle entry paperwork for China Communications and State Grid tomorrow. Staying here is more convenient. Zhou Jiangwo walked up the steps, voice dropping low. Who else is in this attic? Her answer was instant and fearless. Yi Fei. His cigar nearly hit the ground. Just the 2 of you. Princess Anya's room is there too, she added helpfully. Zhou Jiangwo was not reassured. 3-story City Hall. Offices below. Attic above. His daughter sleeping next door to a king. What kind of situation was this? Jianing, I don't care who you're friends with, but you're here for diplomacy. Don't let personal things get in the way. Her brow crinkled. Dad, where's your brain going? I process diplomatic notes. He handles governance. Separate rooms. He coughed. Still, stay safe. There are guards in the attic, and the Interior Ministry office is right downstairs. It's extremely safe. He had nothing left to say. He waved his hand, turned around, and got in the jeep. Door slammed shut. King's Hotel. The French colonial exterior looked decent enough. Inside, everything was ancient. Faucets that wouldn't close all the way. AC units that sounded like dying lawnmowers. Mattresses hard enough to realign your spine. Zhou Jiangwo sat on the bed, too wired to shower. He called home. The man who screamed at construction workers without mercy suddenly dropped his voice 8 octaves. Honey, Jianing is sleeping in the king's attic. 2 seconds of silence on the other end. What attic? Just next door to him. Don't panic. I'll finish the project first, then keep an eye on her. City Hall, 3rd floor. Night wind slipped through cracked windows, ruffling the papers on the desk. I filed the contract in the drawer and stretched. Anya sat at another desk, still crunching numbers on port dredging payments. Her pinned-up hair had come loose, strands falling across her shoulders. Still not sleeping? Port final payments, hotel worker wages, tomorrow's fuel budget. All need to be done. Do it tomorrow. Can't wait. I reached over and closed her ledger. She looked up. Yi Fei, you've been going for over 15 hours. Tomorrow you're meeting the China Communications team. Go sleep. Now, I'll take the sofa. That sofa is half collapsed. I pointed upstairs. Attic has a bed. You take it. She didn't move. That's your room. Next door is Zhou Jianing. I'll sleep on the floor. She looked at the stairs, then at me. You're the king. Kings also need sleep. I grabbed her ledger, shoved it into the drawer, and pointed up. Move. The attic had 2 rooms, east and west. Zhou Jianing was in the east. The west room was originally mine. The plank wall between rooms was thin, walked too heavily, and the other side hurt everything. I went into the west room, pulled open the old wardrobe. The door stuck. I yanked it hard. It flew open, and a bedroll fell onto the floor with a thud. Anya stood by the bed. No. You take the bed. I dragged the bedroll to the floor. I'm sleeping down here. That's not proper. You haven't closed your eyes in 2 days. Can propriety keep you warm at night? I tossed the pillow onto the bedroll. The bed leg is loose. Sit down slowly. Don't collapse it. Anya stood there for a moment, then gave up arguing. She pulled off her military boots and sat on the bed edge. The mattress sagged. She leaned back onto the pillow and let out one long breath. Comfortable, East Room. Zhou Jianning's pen ripped through her document. She stared at the tear mark, ears still ringing with the fragments that had drifted through the thin wooden wall. No. Slowly. Comfortable. She flipped to the next page of her file. The paper tore again. She slammed the pen on the desk, yanked the blanket over her head, and tried very hard to think about diplomatic entry procedures for infrastructure inspection teams. The wooden wall creaked one more time. Zhou Jianning threw the blanket off, sat bolt upright, and glared at the wall. Zhou Jianning threw off her blanket and sat up. The wall on the other side was finally quiet. She'd spent half the night listening to wind hit the windows while her brain kept replaying 3 out-of-context words through the world's thinnest wall. Eavesdropping on the king's bedroom. If this got back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it would end up as a cautionary tale in the new hire training manual. In America, they'd call it a one-woman prison program. Dawn broke. The Jeep bounced out of City Hall, splashing through puddles hard enough to rearrange organs. Zhou Jianning sat in the passenger seat with bags under her eyes, so dark they looked painted on. I was in the back catching up on sleep, my white shirt wrinkled into a topographic map. Anya sat on the other side, flipping through her ledger by morning light, pages turning fast. She'd calculated until the small hours last night, and she was still calculating. Port worker wages, hotel cleaning costs, fuel budget, dredging ship balance. Every cent accounted for. The woman's brain was basically a living spreadsheet. The Jeep stopped at the West Coast port perimeter. I pushed the door open. Salt wind hit my face. The whole port smelled like seaweed and ambition. The breakwater was packed with people. Thousands of port workers, fishermen, and nearby residents. All standing in mud, all staring at the ocean. Along both sides of the channel, 120 fishing boats sat in 2 perfect rows. Heavy iron chains stretched between them, pulled taut. Every time a wave hit, the entire surface screamed with metal friction. At the channel entrance, dozens of men in shredded wetsuits crouched on the rocks. Lead weights and crowbars hung from their waists. Some shirtless, some wearing shoes so worn they barely qualified as footwear. I pointed at them. What are they doing? Hester squeezed through the crowd, pants soaked to mid-thigh. Backup plan. If the cargo ship drifts or gets stuck on shallow ground, they go in immediately. Underwater reef? They pry it. Mud blocking the hull. They dig it out. I stopped for a few seconds. Waves crashed against the rocks, spraying these men head to toe. Nobody moved an inch. One ship of flour determined whether their families ate this week. They were betting their bodies to bring the ship in. I turned. Hesser, after the ship docks, first batch of flour goes to these men's families, he nodded. Then from the outermost edge of the breakwater, a shout that split the morning air. Ship's here. Every head turned. Through the morning fog, a massive bulk carrier was approaching the port. Its hull rose higher than the nearby warehouses. 50,000 tons. It pressed through the waves, horn blasting, and the entire port went silent for half a heartbeat. Hesser sprinted for the speedboat. Light chased after him with his briefcase, slipped, and dunked one leg into the ocean up to his knee. Hesser grabbed him. Dad, stay off the boat. Light hiked up his soaked pant leg. This old servant speaks English. If the captain starts negotiating, someone has to talk. The speedboat engine roared to life. Father and son blasted out of the port toward the cargo ship. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Light's voice came through, chopped up by wind. Your Majesty, we have a problem. The captain refuses to enter the port. He says there are no navigation buoys, incomplete hydrological data, and fishing boats lining both sides of the channel. He won't risk a 50,000-ton vessel in these conditions. He wants to anchor offshore and have us ferry the cargo out on small boats. Anya stepped forward. Give the phone to the captain. I raised my hand and blocked her. Speaker. Now, static. Then a rough male voice, English with an Eastern European accent. Listen, I don't care how hungry your island is. My ship is worth tens of millions of dollars. I am not sailing it into a channel with no buoys, no proper survey data, and fishing boats for guardrails. I deliver cargo. I don't deliver myself to a graveyard. Anya's jaw clenched. $90 million of grain was on that ship. Every day it sat offshore meant rental fees, transfer costs, spoilage risk, and contract penalties stacking up. And more importantly, the port was waiting. The city was waiting. I took the phone and walked to the very edge of the breakwater. $1 million. The other end went dead quiet. Into your personal account. I transfer it right now. Consider it a safe docking bonus. The captain was silent for a few seconds. 1 million? You think 1 million buys me risking a ship worth tens of millions in this mud pit? If I run aground, if I hit a reef, if the hull cracks, what do you pay with? I looked down at my feet. Cracked concrete. Rusted port cranes. Fishing boats swaying in the waves on both sides. This place couldn't offer a single thing that would make a shipping company feel safe. But the ship couldn't wait. It had to enter port today. Hull damage. The kingdom of Gamagila covers full repairs. If it can't be repaired, I pay your company the price of a brand new ship. Minister Light will issue an emergency docking guarantee to your ship owner. Send me your account. 10 seconds. You don't come in, we do the offshore transfer ourselves. And that million stays in MY pocket. Heavy breathing on the other end. 3 seconds. Account number sent. I looked down. An offshore banking account number appeared on my screen. The system's midnight deposit of 100 million was already sitting in my balance. Bank of China app. Account entered. Amount entered. 1 million US dollars. Confirm. International transfer of 1 million US dollars sent. Expected arrival. Immediate. Anya stood beside me, ledger frozen in midair. $1 million. Wired directly to a captain who was refusing to dock 30 seconds ago. Her hand drifted to the crystal dagger. If this captain took the money and didn't deliver, she would personally find a way onto that ship. Keyboard sounds through the phone. A few seconds passed. The captain's voice jumped 3 octaves. Your Majesty. Money received. Have your people hold the channel steady. I'm coming in now. Click. I pocketed the phone. If money can solve it, don't make people solve it with their lives. The horn blasted across the port. The bulk carrier adjusted course. Its enormous bow aimed straight at the gap between the 2 rows of fishing boats. Propellers churned white water. The ship dropped below 3 knots, inching forward. Both lines of fishing boats rocked violently in the wake. Iron chains pulled tight enough to sing. On shore, thousands of people gripped the mooring ropes, feet sinking into mud. Some buried to their shins. Some with palms bleeding from the friction. Nobody let go. Hold. Hard to port. Tighten the cables. Hester stood on the speedboat, screaming through the tin megaphone. The cargo ship squeezed past the fishing boats. 20 meters. 10 meters. 5 meters. Boom. The hull pressed against the battered dock berth. Thick mooring lines flew from the deck, looped around iron posts. The ship stopped. The entire port went silent for 1 second. Then, an explosion of sound. Cheering crashed over the breakwater like a second wave. Someone dropped their rope and collapsed into the mud. Someone fell to their knees, hands over their face, sobbing uncontrollably. On deck, the foreign crew lined the railing, staring down at the crowd. None of them said a word. Hesser didn't celebrate. He was already running backward, waving his arms. Trucks, get over here. Ramps up. A few battered trucks pulled alongside the berth. Workers hauled thick wooden planks from the truck beds and laid them end to end, building a ramp up to the cargo hold. On deck, the crew opened the hold covers. Inside, 50-kilo bags of flour, stacked in perfect rows. White packaging, thousands upon thousands of them. Hesser raised his hand. Unload. Dozens of port workers charged up the ramp. No forklifts. No conveyor belts. Just shoulders. Old Mac grabbed 2 bags at once, bent nearly double under the weight, and sprinted down the wooden planks. Flour bags slammed into the staging area. He turned and ran back up. Beside the pile, a small child squatted on the ground, reached out, and wiped a streak of white powder off a bag with his finger. He put it in his mouth, smacked his lips. Mama, it's flour. The woman knelt down and pulled him into her arms. Hesser grabbed soldiers and separated a few dozen bags from the first batch. Load them up. Deliver to the families by the rocks. The king's grain for the heroes. The crowd roared again. The divers by the rocks all stood up. Some dropped to their knees facing me, fingers laced, foreheads hitting the mud. I raised my hand. Get up. Today it's not just them getting flour. At the port's edge, a rust-covered gantry crane groaned to life. Gears ground. The boom arm lifted. Hester sprinted to me, voice completely shredded. Your Majesty, crane number 2 is working. The operator, they found him in the village last night and brought him back. I looked up. The hook dropped into the cargo hold. Workers loaded 20 bags into a cargo net. Steel cables tightened. The net rose out of the hold, swung over the ship's rail, and landed on the open ground behind the berth. Ground crew rushed in, slashed the net ropes, and ran off with flour on their shoulders. Outside the port, every vehicle in Gamagila had arrived. Chipped pickups, ancient sedans, three-wheeled motorcycles. Someone brought a mule. Flour bags were shoved into truck beds, strapped to car roofs, slung across mule backs. Wheels churned mud and dust as vehicles scattered in every direction toward Burad. One modern cargo ship, one half-dead port, an army of people carrying grain on their shoulders. I stood on the breakwater and muttered under my breath. Son of a turtle, this is straight-up magical realism. A military green jeep rolled into the port zone. Zhou Jiangwo stepped out. Suit pressed, leather shoes sinking into mud, didn't slow down. He stood at the berth and watched. Workers running up and down the ramp. The freshly resurrected crane swinging loads. The flour pile growing taller by the minute. After a long silence, he pulled a cigar from his pocket. Bit the end. Didn't light it. Kid, this scene, I saw it 40 years ago when we built reservoirs back home. Give people work and food, and they can literally flip the earth over. He pointed at the port. I'll build your road. But this port can't run on shoulders forever. Anya's tablet lit up. She scanned the message and speed-walked to my side. Your Majesty, the dredging ship and two high-powered tugboats have reached the edge of our waters. The company requires $18 million in final payment before they'll hand over the vessels. Zhou Jiangwo's unlit cigar stopped in midair. Yesterday, I paid Jingxi $50 million. Just now I paid the captain $1 million. Now another $18 million. Where was this young king's money coming from? I didn't explain. I pulled out my cracked phone, opened the transfer page. Account entered. Amount entered. 18 million US dollars. Confirm. International transfer of 18 million US dollars sent. Expected arrival. Immediate. I turned the screen toward Zhou Jiangwo. Mr. Zhou, ships are here. Port dredging starts today. When does your construction team arrive? He looked at the transfer confirmation. Took the cigar out of his mouth. 50 million. 1 million. 18 million. This bankrupt kingdom's king spent money without half a second of hesitation. Zhou Jiangwo wiped mud off his shoes, turned toward his jeep, and bellowed. OLDLI. The chief engineer came running. MR, ZHOU. Zhou Jiangwo pointed at the ocean beyond the port. Call home. Book every charter flight for tomorrow. Excavators, mixing stations, gravel equipment. On a ship within 3 days. He rolled up his sleeves. I'm staying right here and going all out for 3 months. I leaned against a concrete block on the breakwater. In the near distance, the cargo ship was still unloading flour. Further out, 2 engineering tugboats pulled longhorn blasts as they dragged an enormous dredging vessel through the morning fog, heading straight for port. A steel dredging shovel hung from the bow like a giant's fist. The water churned behind the propellers, white and violent. The port was waking up, and it was hungry for work. 2 hours before the Chinese delegation's plane touched down, the dredging ship was already tearing into the harbor like a hungry animal. Steel scoops slammed into the ocean floor. Black mud, crushed shells, and stinking seawater launched into the air, then crashed back down. Workers on the breakwater flinched, waited for the mud shower to pass, then grabbed their hooks and ropes and sprinted back toward the cargo ship. Nobody had time to complain about getting dirty. Dirty was the default setting around here. I stood on the embankment watching when a notification pinged in my head. Cumulative spending threshold reached. National talent point earned. 1. Didn't hesitate. Citizen, physical body, level 2. Secondary enhancement. Bone density increased, muscle endurance increased, adaptation to high-intensity labor improved. The notification vanished. The port went quiet for about 3 seconds. Then Old Mac bent down and grabbed 2 bags of flour, 50 kilos each. He was about to hoist them up when he paused, reached down, and threw a 3rd bag onto his shoulder. 150 kilograms. On one man. Every worker nearby stopped and stared like they'd just witnessed a magic trick at a very sweaty circus. Old Mac bit down on the burlap edge, stepped onto the wet wooden planks, boards groaning under him, and walked the whole way down to the staging area. Flour bags slammed into the pile. Mud splashed up his legs. He straightened up, slapped his shoulder, and yelled, again, then turned and charged back up the ramp. Young guys who'd been struggling with single bags suddenly found themselves hoisting heavy crates onto trucks like it was nothing. One of them looked down at his own hands, confused. Another grabbed an iron hook and took off running toward the cargo hold. The entire port shifted into a higher gear. Gamage Island, English, swearing, and laughter all blended into one beautiful chaos. Clear left. Bay 3 is full. Get the mule cart out of the way. Take 5 bags off that crane load. The cable can't hold it, Hesser was. On the speedboat, megaphone in hand, voice completely destroyed. Half his body hung over the railing as he directed fishing boats to clear the channel for the dredging operation. I watched for a while, then turned to Anya. She was still holding her ledger. Pages covered with port dredging costs, hotel renovations, fuel purchases, and worker wages. Anya, here, hand over the transport ministry to Hesser. Her pen stopped. Hesser, I pointed at the speedboat. He knows civil engineering, he knows ports, and people listen to him. Port expansion, the West Coast Industrial Park, the Shun River Channel, the airport-to-port main road, all under transport. Let him recruit his own team, build his own department. Starting today, Hesser is the Minister of Transport. Anya closed her ledger. She didn't argue. During this whole port crisis, Hesser had been everywhere first. Wherever boats were missing, workers were short, staging areas were overflowing, or ships needed rerouting. The old transport ministry deadbeats who collected paychecks and did nothing couldn't hold a candle to this guy. Nearby, Light was standing by a puddle with his briefcase. When he heard the appointment, his foot slipped and one leg plunged into the mud up to his knee. His pants were soaked. He didn't care. When Hesser came ashore, Light told him. This dark-skinned man who'd spent years fishing to survive stood completely still for a long time. Then he walked onto the speedboat deck. Both knees hit the planks. Hands laced, pressed to his forehead. Hesser what swears loyalty to His Majesty the King unto death. The port went quiet. Foreign crew members leaned over the ship, railing to watch. Old Mac, standing on a plank with flour on his shoulder, grinned and hollered. Minister of Transport. Workers echoed the shout. Hesser looked up, forehead caked in mud. I waved him off. Stop kneeling. The port isn't finished. Get up and get back to work. He laughed, scrambled to his feet, and snatched the megaphone. Tug 2, pull north. Keep the dredger off the fishing boats. He ran even faster than before. Anya looked at me. What about me? You're off port duty. I nodded toward the city. Zhou Jiangwo's construction crews are coming in. China Communications, State Grid, China Railway, all sending people. Thousands of workers needing food, housing, entry processing, supplies, and vehicles. Someone has to manage all of it. The 50 rooms at King's Hotel won't be enough. Every abandoned hotel, guest house, and old motel in Burad that can be fixed. Fix them all. You handle hiring, renovations, and operations. Foreign delegations, engineering logistics, commercial teams landing. That's your territory. Anya flipped to the back pages of her ledger. Renovations cost money. Staff wages cost money. Kitchen equipment costs money. Airport customs has a handful of people. No security scanners, no luggage belts, not even a proper holding area. She paused. And royal security. The royal guard is 500 soldiers. Can't even scrape together enough bulletproof vests. Weapons are ancient. When foreign business delegations arrive, we can't have guards standing around with museum piece rifles. I rubbed my forehead. One hole after another. This country used to be so broke it couldn't even afford dignity. Dissolve the military. Anya looked up. Dissolve? 500 soldiers sitting in a military structure is useless. They can't defend the sea, can't cover the air, can't fight a war. I counted on my fingers. Restructure them entirely. Create a royal police bureau and a border customs force. Port security, airport security, city law enforcement, immigration control. Give it all to them. Anya wrote it down. What about royal protection and high security facilities? Contact Blackwater. I want a 12-person elite squad. Royal close protection, port and airport critical zone security, counter-hijacking training, plus training the Royal Guard. Let them handle all of it. Anya pressed the ledger edge. That kind of team is expensive. Annual cost, at least $10 million minimum. Weapons, ammunition, logistics, and base facilities are extra. The fiscal account is already fully allocated. Infrastructure costs money. Lives cost more. I looked at the port. Dredging ship still digging. Cargo ship still unloading. Workers hadn't stopped. Hundreds of billions in construction projects spinning up. More and more eyes will be on Burad. Right now we don't even have a front door. Buy some guard dogs first. Any security problem money can solve. Don't make our people solve it with their bodies. Anya was quiet for a few seconds. What about regular police training? With 100,000 laborers coming in, Law enforcement pressure will be massive, asked Zhou Jianing. I smiled. China's SWAT training system is solid. Have her pull strings, get a few dozen instructors over as an international exchange program. We pay Blackwater to train the elite unit. Regular police train with Chinese instructors. Anya wrote 2 lines in her ledger. Blackwater Security. Police training program. I'll handle it. She closed the book and walked toward the jeep. Not long after, another military green jeep tore into the port. Mud flying everywhere. Zhou Jianing jumped out. Dark business suit. Hair pinned up, clutching a red-stamped document. Her heels clicked between gravel and puddles as she marched toward me at diplomatic crisis speed. Yifei, stop standing around. Come with me. Now. I didn't move. Where? Airport. She slapped the document against my chest. People from China are here. I glanced down. Official note regarding the joint delegation of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Commerce visiting the Kingdom of Gamajila. Delegation leader, Deputy Minister Hua. I raised an eyebrow. Yesterday, I signed the $50 million road mobilization contract. Today, the deputy minister was flying in personally. Fast mover. Hua leading the delegation? Euro-Oceania Division doesn't mess around. Zhou Jianing was already dragging me toward the jeep. Save the commentary for later. My dad stayed up all night ordering equipment and workers. Every major infrastructure company in China caught wind of it. They checked your payment records, all cash. No delays. No credit. Contract signed, money lands same day. That kind of client? Everyone wants in. She flipped open the document. China Communications Senior Executive. State Grid Chief Engineer. China Railway Project Manager. Plus representatives from telecom, construction machinery, port equipment, and food processing companies. All on the plane. This isn't just a trade delegation. This is Gamajila's future roads, power, ports, and industry, all arriving at once. We got in the back of the jeep. Driver floored it. The truck shot out of the port zone, bouncing over every pothole like a mechanical bull. I leaned back and looked at Zhou Jianing. It's just a trade delegation. Why does the deputy minister need to come personally? She put away her compact mirror. China and Gamajila haven't formally established diplomatic relations yet. Thousands of Chinese workers are about to enter the country. Hundreds of billions in projects need to land. Without an embassy, without consular protection, without official endorsement, how do companies feel safe? The trade mission is the surface. Formal diplomatic establishment is the real purpose. I tapped my knee. Diplomatic relations. 2 heavy words. Before this, Gamajila had 0 trade and 0 formal ties with China. Going forward, Chinese cargo ships docking at Burad Port, Chinese charter planes landing at the airport, Chinese factories rising in the industrial park. This island would stop being an unprotected speck in the ocean. Diplomatic relations are good. I turned to her. After it's official, China will need to send their first ambassador, right? Zhou Jianing sat up slightly straighter. Senior personnel decisions are above my pay grade. I'm a rookie. Don't play humble. I leaned back. A brand new ministry hire flies to a broken island nobody wanted to touch, breaks the diplomatic ice, brings her own father to build roads, and delivers a full delegation. That kind of achievement doesn't disappear. She held up her folder to cover half her face. First ambassador won't be me, but the embassy preparation team. I probably can't dodge that assignment. That's pretty great too. I nodded. When it's time to lease land for the embassy, we'll charge market rate. She lowered the folder. Yifei, do you look at everyone and think about how to charge them money? Brothers settle accounts clearly. International business, even more so. The jeep slammed to a stop. Burad International Airport. Outside the leaky tin terminal, Light had changed into his emergency reserve black tailcoat, sleeves worn at the edges. He stood perfectly straight. A few freshly shaved customs officers held antique rifles at the tarmac perimeter. In the distance, engine roar. The clouds split open. A Boeing 747 with a 5-star red flag painted on its belly descended toward the runway like a mountain falling from the sky. Wheels hit pavement. White smoke trailed 2 lines down the tarmac. The tin terminal rattled so hard it sounded like applause. The aircraft taxied slowly and stopped at the apron. Its massive fuselage blocked out a wide swath of sunlight. The staircase truck rolled into position against the cabin door. I stepped out of the jeep. No glasses today. The wind caught the hem of my white shirt. Zhou Jianing moved to her diplomatic protocol position. Light clutched his briefcase, palms drenched. The cabin door opened. Hydraulics hummed. A single black flat-soled shoe stepped onto the staircase. A black flat-soled shoe stepped onto the staircase. Deputy Minister Hua descended from the Boeing 747 like she was walking into a board meeting, not a country held together by fish and willpower. Dark suit, sharp bob cut, and behind her, a parade of representatives from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Commerce, and every major state-owned enterprise that smelled opportunity. I walked up and extended my hand. Deputy Minister Hua, welcome to Gamajila. She shook it once. Your Majesty, quite different from last time we met. We let go. She scanned the tarmac. The tin terminal had a hole in the roof. Wind was blowing through it, making the metal panels clap like broken applause. 4 customs officers stood in a row holding paint-chipped rifles. Their salute timing was off by about half a second each, but their faces were dead serious. A few executives behind Hua paused mid-step. They'd read the briefing files. Population, almost 1 million. GDP, $10 billion. Debt, $9 billion. Port half dead, airport runway fine, but the terminal couldn't even offer a decent waiting room. Reports are one thing. Seeing it hit different. This place was broke down to its atoms. Hua pulled her gaze back. I gestured toward the vehicles. Shall we talk at the Burad City Hall, please? 3 jeeps rolled out of the airport. The road was its usual disaster. Potholes, puddles, full body vibration. Hua sat in the back seat, saying nothing, flipping through documents. Zhou Jianing rode shotgun, glancing back every few seconds. I leaned against my seat, tapping the window frame with my fingers. I'd been waiting 2 days for this meeting. China's engineering crews, equipment, technology, and supply chains were the fastest lifeline Burad could grab. I had the money. I had the people. I had a market to offer. All I needed was the official channel. City Hall, 3rd floor conference room. Long table, both sides full. Anya had brought in a few recently returned civil servants to serve tea. The cups were old white porcelain. 2 of them had chipped rims. She'd done her best. Hua picked up her cup, blew the floating tea leaf fragments aside, and took a sip. She set it down. Your Majesty, this tea has some age to it. I leaned back. Clearance rack aged tea. Budget's tight. Please bear with us. She took another sip. The water is nice though. Very clean, straight from the Shun River behind the mountain. I picked up my own cup and drank it like it was a shot of baijiu. Next time you visit, I'll upgrade the tea. Hua opened her file. Regarding China Gamajila diplomatic establishment, China has several core principles. The room went silent. First, there is only one China. Taiwan is an inseparable part of Chinese territory. I nodded. No problem. Then I paused and added. Want me to set aside a piece of land on the island for a Pacific supply station? We could do a pincer move. Maybe a little blitzkrieg action. Several coughs erupted behind the conference table. Zhou Jianing sat in the back row, folder covering half her face. Under the table, the tip of her shoe kicked my shin. I turned. She dropped her voice to a hiss. Shut up. This is a formal occasion. Hua set down her document, completely unfazed. His Majesty's goodwill is appreciated. China adheres to an independent and peaceful foreign policy. We do not seek military expansion overseas. I nodded. Fair enough. I'll defer to the professionals, Hua continued. Second, non-interference in internal affairs. Third, protection of the legal rights and personal safety of Chinese citizens within Gamajila. I raised my hand. Both fine. Chinese workers come in. The kingdom gives them fast-track entry processing, plus hospital access, secure housing, security details, and a police liaison system. Anyone who touches a Chinese worker answers to me first. Hua glanced at Anya. Anya had already flipped to a blank page in her ledger and was speed writing. Personnel safety mechanism, consular assistance, entry corridor. Hua closed her file. China's position is clear. What are the kingdom's requests? Light was sitting next to me. He instantly opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of prepared documents. Deputy Minister Hua, the kingdom hopes China can provide favorable treatment regarding tariffs, trade, personnel visas, cargo customs clearance, and I reached over and pressed down on his wrist. Light stopped. I looked at Hua. The old man's thinking too small. Light opened his mouth, closed it, and quietly pushed his documents back onto the table. I held up one finger. Port expansion, airport renovation, city main road construction and urban renewal, power grid, water treatment plants, telecom towers, hospitals and schools, second finger, grain, petroleum, medical equipment, consumer goods, industrial machinery. I need a long-term, stable supply chain. Across the table, several executives set down their teacups. Someone opened a folder. Someone pulled out a tablet. Someone started writing down project names. Hua looked at me. Your Majesty, China's foreign aid follows strict approval procedures. The scale you're proposing is very large. Free assistance is not realistic. I smiled. I put my hand on the table and knocked twice. Who said anything about aid? Everyone in the room froze. I sat up straight. Gamajila is fully opening its market to Chinese enterprises. I pay. You bring people, equipment, and technology. Port, roads, power grid, telecom, water supply. Everything is negotiable, but 3 conditions. First, quality must pass inspection. Second, timelines compressed to the fastest possible. Third, pricing follows market rates. Anyone who tries to treat me like a sucker gets shown the door. News of Zhou Jiangwo receiving 50 million in mobilization funds had already spread through the delegation. Contract signed, money landed instantly. The cargo ship captain got $1 million docking bonus and muscled a 50,000-ton vessel into port. The dredging ship's $18 million balance was transferred on the spot. This young king spent money without blinking. How much he actually had was anyone's guess. But more importantly, he spent it with direction. Port, roads, industrial park, power grid, airport. Every dollar aimed at something that would eventually pay for itself. The China Communications executive opened a satellite view of the West Coast Industrial Park on his tablet. The state grid chief engineer was already reviewing Burad's existing hydropower data. The China Railway project manager zoomed in on the main road plan. 1 million people. A 3,000 square kilometer capital city. An almost completely blank infrastructure slate. And cash on delivery US dollars. This wasn't a normal overseas project. This was a brand new market that just unlocked its front door. Hua watched every delegate's reaction. Then she looked at me again. Faded white shirt. Sitting in a crumbling city hall. Teacup with its chipped side facing outward. But the terms this young man was putting on the table had zero desperation. Not a trace of poor country begging for help. He wasn't here to ask for aid. He was shopping for partners. Hua was quiet for a moment. China supports enterprises participating in Gamajila's development through legal and compliant channels. However, some things need to be made clear up front. Diplomatic relations are diplomatic relations. Projects are projects. China can provide policy support, commercial coordination, and enterprise resources. But specific projects must follow commercial procedures, contracts, audits, payments, fulfillment, personnel safety. No shortcuts. I nodded. Absolutely. I'm not afraid of contracts. I'm not afraid of fine print. The only thing I'm afraid of is someone taking the money and not doing the work. Hua turned back to the diplomatic establishment communique draft. Within 3 days, both sides signed the formal establishment communique. After that, China will begin preparations for a Gamajila embassy. I raised my hand. Done. Meeting over. Anya gathered her thick ledger and stood by the back row. Enterprise representatives. Preliminary plans for the port, power grid, telecom, and industrial park are available at the Transport Ministry. Please follow me to the next conference room. Several executives stood up immediately. Light grabbed his briefcase and followed. At the door, he looked back at me one more time. The speech he'd spent 2 weeks preparing, tariffs, visas, customs facilitation, I'd steamrolled past all of it in 30 seconds. And he couldn't find a single thing wrong with how I did it. Zhou Jining collected her files and was about to leave. I didn't move. Deputy Minister Hua. She stopped at the door. Zhou Jining's steps halted too. I tapped the table. After diplomatic relations are established, who's China planning to send as the first ambassador to Gamajila? I tapped the table. After diplomatic relations are established, who's China planning to send as the first ambassador to Gamajila? Hua stopped at the door. First ambassador appointments are serious personnel decisions. Even after signing the communique, you don't casually drop names in a room full of people. She turned around, ready to deflect. Across the table, Zhou Jining stood holding her files, spine straight as a flagpole. That kick under the table earlier hadn't been hard, but now with Hua looking in her direction, her ears were turning pink. She buried her face in meeting notes, pretending to verify dates with life or death intensity. Hua paused. She'd been watching. This young king spent money like water, moved fast, and had a complete construction blueprint. Port, roads, power grid, industrial park. Zhou Jining had been in the ministry for barely half a year, yet she'd flown to the middle of the Pacific, cracked open a country nobody wanted to touch. dragged it into a formal cooperation framework, and recruited her own father's construction company. Leaving her here for the embassy prep team made perfect sense. The first ambassador needs substantial diplomatic experience, Hua said, returning to the table. The ministry plans to send a deputy director from the Oceania division. He's handled Pacific Island affairs for years and can hit the ground running with embassy setup and coordination. Zhou Jianning's hands paused on her papers for just a moment. Deputy director, meaning the ambassador job had nothing to do with her. She didn't look up, just smoothed the corner of her document. I leaned back and didn't push it. I never expected China to promote a brand new hire straight to ambassador. Who held the title didn't matter. What mattered was that Zhou Jianning stayed. Thousands of Chinese workers were about to pour into Burad. After them, poured equipment teams, power grid engineers, telecom crews, internet companies, food processing firms. Without someone who understood both sides and could mediate on the fly, problems would multiply like rabbits. Hua looked at Zhou Jianning. However, the initial embassy preparation workload is heavy. Comrade Zhou Jianning performed exceptionally during this diplomatic breakthrough. The ministry has decided to grant an exceptional promotion to third secretary, responsible for the Gamajila Embassy Advanced Preparation Team. Zhou Jianning looked up. Third secretary. She'd been on the job less than 6 months. Normally, new hires waited years for that rank. She gripped her folder, took 2 seconds to steady her breathing, and said, "I accept the organization's assignment." Hua nodded. Embassy prep work is no easier than domestic posts. Office space, consular liaison, personnel housing, security protocols, external coordination, all from scratch. Whether this embassy stands up depends on you. Yes, ma'am. Her voice was perfectly steady. Hua gathered her files and nodded at me. Your Majesty, the formal text of the diplomatic establishment communique will be delivered within 3 days. May our cooperation go smoothly. I stood up. Don't worry. People are here. Things will get done. Hua left with her secretary. Door closed. Zhou Jianning stood in place holding her files, frozen solid for a long time. I walked past her and knocked on the folder in her arms. Third Secretary Zhou, she looked up. Let's go. I headed for the stairs. Time to see your new territory. City Hall ground floor reception hall. Wall plaster peeling in chunks, exposing blackened cement underneath. A few old wooden sofas were crammed with enterprise representatives who hadn't made it into the upstairs meeting. Some were discussing port draft depths. Some had road plans spread across their laps. Others were on their phones nonstop, calling back to China. I came down the stairs, scanned the room, and my eyes landed on one particular face. Dark jacket, half-frame glasses, small notebook in hand, quietly briefing his assistant. I'd seen this face plenty of times on financial news and trending topics back when I was an office drone. Alibaba Group, Daniel Zhang, the legendary Zai Yozi. I walked straight over. Mr. Zhang. He looked up, closed his notebook, and stood immediately. Your Majesty. He extended both hands. I shook once. We didn't save a seat upstairs for tech companies. My apologies. Not at all. He waved it off. Infrastructure comes first. That's just common sense. Alibaba tagged along with the delegation mainly to explore e-commerce, logistics, and cloud services. E-commerce and logistics can wait. I pointed outside the building. Burad doesn't even have a proper main road yet. A delivery guy riding an electric scooter would shake the frame apart before reaching the first customer. He nodded. Then what would your Majesty like to start with? A national system. The hall went quiet. Nearby, several state-owned enterprise executives froze mid-sip. I stuck my hands in my pockets. Personal identity verification, digital payments, government services, business registration, customs and immigration, basic credit records. Start rolling it out from Burad. Eventually cover all of Gamajila. Zhang's pen stopped on his notepad. This wasn't a regular e-commerce deal. This was a national-level digital infrastructure platform. If it worked, Alibaba wouldn't just gain an overseas market. They'd get a full-scale national case study. Future pitches to Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia for government cloud, mobile payments, and digital governance would come with a ready-made showcase. Your Majesty, his voice dropped. A system of this level involves massive amounts of core data. You're certain you want Alibaba to build it? You build it. But there are red lines, and they go into the contract first. He picked up his pen. Go ahead. First, all Gamajila citizen data, government data, and immigration data belongs to the kingdom. Full stop. Second, core servers must be physically located in Burad. Data cannot leave the country without authorization. Third, system source code, backend access, technical documentation, and emergency protocols. The kingdom keeps copies of everything. Fourth, Alibaba handles construction and maintenance, but no backdoors in the system. Ever. Fifth, government and payment systems must have offline functionality. When this place loses internet or power, and it will, the entire country can't shut down. Zhang's pen flew across the paper. These weren't light requirements. Source code delivery, local deployment, and full backend access meant Alibaba couldn't treat Gamajila as just another overseas cloud client. But it also meant I was serious about building a real digital governance system. Not for PR. To actually run this island properly. Agreed. He set the pen down. Alibaba's government enterprise team can meet these standards. Local server deployment, local data storage. Kingdom retains top-level admin access. After construction, we train local technical staff and gradually transfer operations. I nodded. Price? He adjusted his glasses. For our first national-level project, we're willing to offer the lowest possible rate. Some modules will even waive the construction fee. But ongoing server maintenance, security, version updates, and on-site technical support won't be cheap. All in, annual maintenance runs at least 100 million yuan. The enterprise reps nearby said nothing. 100 million yuan per year in maintenance. For a country where average income was barely $100 and the government was functionally bankrupt, that number could flatten every department's budget. I didn't even open a ledger. My daily income was close to 100 million US dollars. 100 million yuan per year in maintenance wouldn't even use up one day's earnings. Money's not the problem. I patted Zhang on the shoulder. I just need 3 words from you. Fast, accurate, stable. His pen stopped. I kept going. 3 months. I want to see Burad citizens holding their phones, scanning QR codes to buy flour. Port workers collecting wages without standing in line with paper slips. Civil servants processing paperwork without lugging stacks of crumbling files across the city. Who's a citizen? Who's a foreigner? Who entered the port? Who landed at the airport? The system knows everything. Zhang's chest was practically glowing. Competent client. Has money. No bureaucratic games. Clear requirements. And willing to greenlight a national project on the spot. This was every tech company's dream customer. No problem. He whipped out his phone and marched to the corner of the hall. Old Lee, notify the Government Enterprise Division VP. Core team on a plane to Gamajila immediately. Yes, tonight. I'll personally approve the charter flight costs. The other end apparently mentioned scheduling conflicts. Zhang's voice jumped 3 levels. Don't talk to me about scheduling. This is a national-level project. Pause whatever's on the domestic plate. Priority goes all the way up. The foundational capabilities need to be fully integrated. Identity verification and payment systems go live first. Every single resident's information has to map to a specific ID number. Don't build a bunch of pretty demo screens to fool the client. First version runs a complete closed loop. Then we layer on government services, tax, customs, and business modules. I picked up a cup of room temperature water from the table and took a sip. Align the granularity. Empower the underlying architecture. Run through the business closed loop. Seize the ecosystem position. These phrases were pouring out of Zhang's mouth like a corporate buzzword machine gun. I almost choked on my water. Back when I was scrolling short videos on my old phone, I thought these terms were invented by internet users to mock big tech companies. Today I met them in the wild, in their natural habitat. Zhou Jining walked downstairs with her files and stood next to me. Mr. Zhang seems excited. How could he not be? I set down the cup. He's currently aligning the granularity of our entire national population. Zhou Jining paused. What granularity? Never mind. Zhang hung up and strode back. Your Majesty, the team departs tonight. Upon landing, they go into closed development immediately. 3 months. First version of the system goes live. Guaranteed. Send the contract this afternoon. I nodded. Contract goes to Anya for review first. Data ownership, source code, deployment specs, penalties, delivery timeline. Miss a single word, and it comes back. Understood. Zhang straightened up formally. Alibaba will send our absolute best team. This battle, we will win it. He shook my hand once more with both of his, then marched out of City Hall with his assistant at double speed. A few enterprise reps in the hall exchanged glances. The news that Alibaba had just landed a national digital infrastructure contract would reach China by dinner time. This Pacific island nobody had ever heard of was no longer just another overseas market. I turned to Zhou Jianing. Has your dad's construction crew arrived? First batch of management and technical leads have assembled. Charter flight tomorrow. She flipped through her papers. Heavy machinery ships out tomorrow too. Mixing stations, excavators, road rollers, gravel equipment. All loaded. I nodded. Half a month tops before everything was on site. Not bad for speed. Good. I'm going to figure out recruitment. Once the technical team lands, they start training workers immediately. No wasted time. And it gives the people here something they haven't had in years, actual jobs. I walked out of City Hall after the Alibaba meeting with my brain full of servers, base stations, and identity systems. Then the sunlight hit me, and a thought landed like a brick. The system said I had 1 million people, but I'd been here for days and hadn't actually looked at how those 1 million people lived. I'd been treating them like numbers on a spreadsheet, which, ironically, was exactly what my old boss used to do to me. King Square sat just south of City Hall, a massive plaza built for 500,000 people, now cracked apart like a dried riverbed. Hundreds of residents sat along the edges. Old people, women, barefoot kids chasing each other through puddles, poking mud with sticks. Someone spotted me. White shirt, old pants, no bodyguards. A woman recognized me first. She yanked her kid behind her, dropped to her knees, fingers laced against her forehead. Your Majesty. The square went quiet. Then everyone around her hit the ground too. Foreheads on stone, one after another, like dominoes made of people. I stood there and let them finish. Gamagila's customs weren't mine to break. Not yet. When the last person completed the ritual, I grabbed the woman's wrist and pulled her up. On your feet. I turned to an old man nearby and switched to Gamagilan. Sir, do you usually hang around the square all day? He froze. My pronunciation was apparently so perfect he looked like he'd seen a ghost. Your Majesty. He started to kneel again. I caught his arm. Talk standing up, he swallowed hard. Nothing to do, Majesty. The port wants young men. Old bones like us can't carry flour sacks. We got our grain ration, but after eating there's still nothing to do. He paused. Coming out to sit in the sun means eating less. Saves grain for the children. Coming outside to starve slower. So the kids could eat. I didn't respond right away. People started gathering. Hundreds of faces, different skin colors, same worn-out clothes. Bare feet. Pants ripped to the knee. Shirt collars black with grime. Fabric washed until the color surrendered. I pulled over a broken wooden chair and sat down. Anyone else here without work? Silence for a few seconds. Then a thin young black man raised his hand. Your Majesty, I do woodwork. Tables, doors, cabinets. But nobody in the city is building houses or buying furniture. I pointed towards City Hall. Go to King's Hotel tomorrow. Find Princess Anya. The hotel renovation needs carpenters. He stood frozen. Oh, really? Get there early. He dropped to his knees so fast his forehead cracked against the paving stones. Thank you, Your Majesty. Then the floodgates opened. Majesty, I can mend fishing nets. I can drive. I can patch roofs. I can haul cargo. My wife can cook. More and more voices. I sat on that broken chair and listened to every single one. Before today, I'd counted population as income. 1 million people. $100 million a day. Clean math. But now these people were standing right in front of me. They weren't numbers. They wanted jobs. They wanted their kids fed. They wanted a roof that didn't leak. Grrrr. My stomach growled. Loudly. In front of everyone. The crowd went dead silent. A young East Asian man stepped forward. Behind him stood a woman in an old headscarf and 3 skinny children. The smallest one was clinging to her sister's arm, staring at my stomach. The young man wrung his hands. Your Majesty, my house is on the north slope. The port gave us flour. My wife baked flatbread. If you don't mind, you could come eat. I stood up. Let's go. I want to see how good your wife's cooking is. His face turned completely red. He turned and led the way. The crowd didn't disperse. Hundreds of people followed at a distance, like a parade nobody organized. Burad was built on hillsides, houses stacked on top of each other. From far away, blue walls, yellow walls, and red tin roofs painted a picture that almost looked charming, like a Mediterranean postcard. Up close, the charm evaporated. The young man stopped at a small blue house. The door was made of scrap wood planks held together by strips of cloth stuffed in the gaps. Your Majesty, please come in. I stepped over the threshold. Thud. The concrete floor had a crack running across it like a fault line, packed with black mud. No windows. Wall plaster gone, exposing blackened brick. Roof leaking. Water dripped steadily into a plastic bucket in the corner. Drip, drip, drip. The woman rushed to the corner, pulled back a rag, and lifted a chipped iron plate. On it, 2 flatbreads, baked hard, edges slightly burnt. Made to last, not to taste good. She raised the plate above her head. "Your Majesty, please eat." I didn't reach for it immediately. 3 children stood against the wall. Nobody spoke, but the smallest one couldn't stop staring at the plate. The woman stepped closer, lifting the plate even higher. I looked at the mold stains on her sleeve cuffs. Then I turned to the doorway. The dirt road was packed with hundreds of people. Torn shorts, old bedsheets wrapped around waists, clothes covered in permanent mildew spots. The young man suddenly collapsed to the ground, palms flat on the cracked floor. "Your Majesty, the house is too filthy. I've dirtied your presence. I am guilty." The woman knelt too, iron plate shaking in her hands. Outside, every head bowed. I stood in that room and didn't move. Back in China, I thought being an office slave was rock bottom. Unpaid overtime, boss drawing motivational pies on whiteboards, salary delayed month after month. I thought that was suffering. These people didn't have a single clean piece of clothing. Their house leaked. The floor was cracked open. Their children were hypnotized by a hard piece of bread. And they thought all of this was their fault. I swung my foot and kicked the plastic bucket against the wall. Bang! Black water splashed everywhere. The young man trembled like a leaf. I bent down, grabbed his collar, and hauled him to his feet. "I told you to stand." He leaned against the wall, legs still shaking. I walked out the door. On the dirt slope, hundreds of people had their heads lowered. "You think you're guilty?" Nobody answered. I pulled open my shirt collar. "The roof leaks. That's your fault? Your clothes rot with mold. That's your fault? No jobs. Kids going hungry. Your fault too?" An old man stood at the front, lips moving, too afraid to make sound. I walked over and straightened him up. "It's not your fault." I turned to face the entire road. "It's the kingdom's fault. Nobody took care of you. And it's my fault, your king, for not coming to see this until today." Total silence. I went back inside and picked up a flatbread from the iron plate. The woman looked up quickly. "Your Majesty, it's too hard. Hard bread fills you up longer." I bit down. Coarse flour scraped my throat. Burnt edges. Tasted like poverty and determination. I chewed, swallowed, and walked back to the doorway holding the remaining half. I ate the bread. "Starting tomorrow, there'll be a job registration point by the square. If you can haul cargo, port. If you know carpentry, masonry, or repairs, hotel and city renovation crews. If you can cook, do laundry, or take care of children, engineering support teams. Old people and those who can't do heavy labor, there's still work. Cafeterias, cleaning, supply distribution, community registration. Someone always needs to do it." Gasping sounds from the crowd. I kept pushing. "Chinese construction crews arrive tomorrow. Roads, power grid, port, hotels, everything needs workers. Don't think about getting free grain forever. If you have hands and feet, go work. Pay comes on time. Best workers get priority for new housing." I raised the half-eaten bread. "Dangerous housing list, register tomorrow too. Leaking roofs get fixed first. Collapsing walls get reinforced first. Then we tear down old houses and build new ones. Schools and hospitals, they're coming too." I looked at the young man. "Your 3 kids won't spend their lives staring at half a piece of bread." His mouth hung open. No sound came out. I shoved the last bite into my mouth. "Gamajila. Starting today, we live different." Someone squatted down, hands over their face, crying. Someone stood in place, shoulders heaving. The young father turned around and pulled all 3 children into his arms, face buried in their hair. Nobody knelt this time. I walked down the slope. The crowd parted like a river around a stone. Halfway down, a military green jeep screeched to a halt in front of me. Door flew open. Anya jumped out. Perfect uniform, platinum hair pinned tight, ledger in hand. "Yi Fei, where did you go?" I brushed breadcrumbs off my hands. "Lunch." She glanced at the residence up the hill, didn't push it, and opened her ledger. "Blackwater Security Advanced Team has arrived. 12 operators, full tactical squad. Team leader is a former Navy SEAL instructor. Call sign, Grizzly." I opened the passenger door. "Where are they?" "City Hall." Anya got behind the wheel and started the engine. "They refused the old military barracks. They want to take over perimeter security for City Hall, King's Hotel, and the airport reception area. Grizzly also wants to meet you." I leaned back. Taking our money and being picky about the boss, Anya hit the gas. He reviewed Burad's security layout. Port, airport, City Hall, hotel. No complete security perimeter anywhere. Weapons permits, base authorization, patrol zones, emergency response authority. No formal documentation for any of it. He wants to confirm the employment contract was issued by a legitimate government. I leaned against the door. Afraid of getting dragged into a coup? Yes. Anya gripped the wheel. Grizzly doesn't work for puppets. He wants to confirm you're the person actually running this country. The Jeep tore down the hillside and turned onto the main road. Outside City Hall, 3 black armored SUVs were parked in a line. 12 fully armed men spread across tactical positions. Plate carriers, assault rifles, leg holsters, full American kit. A few customs officers with their antique rifles stood 10 meters back, barrels pointed at the ground, none of them daring to approach. The lead man had a buzz cut, wore sunglasses, and was chewing gum with the casual intensity of someone who'd killed people before breakfast. The Jeep stopped. I got out. Buzz cut spit out his gum and walked forward. He had half a head on me. You're the king? I am. Blackwater Advanced Team Leader. Call sign Grizzly. He scanned my white shirt and old pants. $10 million security contract. We accepted. But from this moment, your travel routes, meeting lists, and daily schedule go through me first. He pointed at City Hall. Building security is mine too. I don't protect someone who can't control their own itinerary. Anya's hand went to the crystal dagger. I raised my hand. She stopped. I walked up to Grizzly until we were half a step apart. This is Gamajila. I'm the king. Routes, I decide. Who I meet, I decide. Your job is to assess threats, set up perimeters, and eliminate dangers. I pointed down at the gum on the ground. You can give opinions. You don't make my decisions. The contract runs by these rules, or you pick up your trash and get out. Grizzly stood there. Didn't move. Grizzly stood there like a statue with a jaw clench. $10 million wasn't the biggest contract Blackwater had ever taken. But this client was unique. Population under 1 million. 9 billion in debt. Port half dead. Army of 500. Customs guards holding rifles so old the paint had given up. He'd come expecting either a puppet king being controlled by politicians or some panicking rich boy who just inherited a crown and didn't know which end was up. Instead, he got me. Old pants, white shirt, standing in front of City Hall with 0 bodyguards and 0 hesitation. I told him straight. I decide the routes. I decide who I meet. His team handles risk assessment, perimeter security, and stopping bullets. He gives opinions. He doesn't give orders. Grizzly had spent 15 years in the mercenary world. He'd worked for plenty of bosses. The ones with no real power always overcompensated with theatrics. The ones who actually called the shots didn't waste words. He bent down, picked up his gum wrapper from the ground, and tossed it in the trash. Blackwater International Tactical Squad accepts the contract. He straightened up, right fist to left chest. Your Majesty, your rules. We execute. I nodded. Anya already sent the contract, base authorization, and patrol boundaries to Blackwater headquarters. Once they confirm, you start. Grizzly paused. This young king hadn't been winging it. He'd already closed every back door before the conversation started. I pulled out my cracked phone. Blackwater's corporate account. $10 million. Confirm. Ding. Grizzly's satellite communicator buzzed. He checked the screen. Headquarters had forwarded the bank receipt. $10 million. Full payment. Not a deposit. Not installments. The whole thing. His posture got noticeably straighter. Your Majesty, I'll need to redesign today's security layout. I was about to answer when my phone buzzed twice. A WeChat notification. Red and gold electronic wedding invitation. Sender, Zhang Chao. Bro, I'm getting married day after tomorrow. Didn't tell you earlier because I knew you'd show up and try to help move tables. You're always working overtime. Don't make the trip, just come. Don't bring a red envelope. I know you're broke. The thought is what counts. Get off work Friday, clean yourself up, wear something decent, come early. If you try to give me gift money, I'm fighting you. My finger froze on the screen. Zhang Chao, college roommate. Beijing local. Family ran a clothing business. 4 years of university. Whenever I was at my most broke, Zhang Chao would take me out to eat and never let me pay. Every excuse was paper thin. After graduation, I became a corporate slave. Salary minus rent left me enough for instant noodles and Subway fare. Zhang Chao took over the family business and kept calling. Restaurants having a discount. You coming? Client stood me up, ordered food nobody's eating. Bro, help me taste test the new restaurant's menu. Every excuse was terrible. I could see through all of them. But he never once made me feel small about being broke. Last winter, Beijing got slammed with a massive snowstorm. My company laid me off. Lease expired. I was hiding in a basement apartment, chewing cold steamed buns in the dark. Zhang Chao pulled up in his Porsche, threw open the trunk, and started shoving my stuff inside. Why are you living in this dump? You trying to freeze to death? I refused to go. He slammed the steering wheel so hard I thought the airbag would deploy. It's not charity. My online store needs customer service reps. You work, the salary covers rent. Deal? The most transparent excuse he'd ever made. I lived in his spare apartment for 2 months. Those were the hardest weeks of my life. Zhang Chao never asked when I'd pay him back. I never forgot. Now my brother was getting married. Forget a wedding invitation. If he asked me to fly back and carry tables on my shoulders, I'd do it. I put away my phone and turned to Anya. When does the fuel tanker arrive? She checked her ledger. Tonight. Tomorrow by dawn, 2,000 tons of aviation kerosene and diesel fully stored. Deputy Minister Hua's jet refuels and departs tomorrow morning. I tapped the Jeep door. Tell Hua I'm hitching a ride back to Beijing on her plane tomorrow. Anya's pen stopped mid-stroke. Back to Beijing, friend's wedding. Grizzly stepped forward immediately. Your Majesty, cross-border travel requires a full risk reassessment. I'll bring the entire team. I waved him off. China bans firearms. 12 of you landing fully armed. The first people arresting you won't be enemies. They'll be Chinese police. Grizzly didn't back down. Blackwater does not recommend zero security travel for clients. Minimum 4 operators. Perimeter, close protection, driver, intelligence support. I opened the car door. You stay in Burat. City Hall, King's Hotel, Airport. Start setting up perimeters tonight. Those 500 Royal Guard soldiers are yours to train too. Grizzly blocked the door with his arm. 2 people. 1 visible, 1 covert. I held up 1 finger. 1. No weapons. Grizzly was quiet for a few seconds. Fine. I added. Don't pick anyone who looks too tactical. Grizzly stepped aside and signaled behind him. An armored SUV door opened. A blonde woman stepped out. Black tactical boots on gravel, steady stride. She walked to Grizzly's side and pulled off her earpiece. Natalie Miles. Call sign. Red Viper. Grizzly introduced her. Fluent in Chinese. Specializes in intelligence processing and close quarters protection. She'll travel unarmed, posing as a business assistant. Natalie extended her hand. Your Majesty, it's an honor to serve. I shook it. Her palm had the hard calluses of someone who trained daily. Change into civilian clothes. You're coming to Beijing with me tomorrow. Understood. I got in the Jeep and texted Zhang Chao back. Save me a groomsman's suit. No red envelope. But I'm drinking my weight in alcohol at your wedding. That's non-negotiable. Zhang Chao replied almost instantly. You're alive? Where the hell have you been? Someone came to my store asking about you the last couple days. I stared at that last line. My finger hovered over the screen. Grizzly stood outside the car. Your Majesty, want me to look into it? I locked the phone. Not yet. I'll handle it when I get to Beijing. Next morning. 5 a.m. Burat International Airport. See wind howling through the holes in the tin terminal, slapping old posters against the walls. On the tarmac, fuel trucks surrounded the Boeing 747, pumping aviation kerosene into the belly of the beast. I was wearing a suit Anya had excavated from the late king's wardrobe. Slightly oversized, sleeves half an inch too long. I folded the cuffs. And for the first time in days, the black-framed glasses were back on. Natalie followed behind me. Black dress, heels, blonde hair down. Full business assistant disguise. Deputy Minister Hua stood by the staircase. Your Majesty, this look is much more formal than the white shirt. I straightened my collar. Going home for a wedding. Can't show up looking like a refugee. Zhou Jining stood nearby with her files, gave Natalie a once-over. And she is? Business assistant. I answered before Natalie could. Natalie nodded and added in perfect Chinese. I handle scheduling and security matters. Zhou Jining didn't ask more questions. We boarded the jet. Just before the cabin door closed, I looked back. Anya stood at the edge of the tarmac, ledger clutched in her hand. Port dredging balance. Road mobilization funds. Power grid prepayment. Alibaba's first server and tech team deposit. Every project was waiting for money. She wasn't afraid of spending. She was afraid of the account going empty. I stood in the doorway and pulled out my phone. The system's midnight deposit had landed. Plus yesterday's remainder. $150 million. Transferred to fiscal account. Confirm. Anya's tablet vibrated. She looked down. Cross-border transfer received. $150 million US. The numbers in her ledger that had been crushing her chest finally loosened up. Just a little. I called down from the doorway. Money's there. Go negotiate. Sign whatever needs signing, pay whatever needs paying. Don't let anyone think we can't cover the bill. Anya looked up. The cabin door was already closing. She opened WeChat and typed fast. Yifei, where is this money actually coming from? Is China secretly backing you? Are they routing money through you so it comes back to their companies, propping us up as puppets at minimum cost? The cabin door sealed shut with a hydraulic hiss. I leaned back into the leather seat and stared at my chat with Anya. She'd just asked me point blank where the money was coming from, whether China was secretly funding me, whether the whole thing was a scheme to puppet Gamajila at minimum cost. I typed a response, deleted it, typed again. The system was the one thing I could never explain to anyone. Ever. Clean money. Don't investigate. Pause 2 seconds. If the sky falls, I'm holding it up. The kingdom won't have problems again. Sent. Out on the tarmac, Anya stood in the wind watching the 747 taxi away. Engines kicked up sand and scraps of paper. She held down her ledger with one hand, a few strands of platinum hair whipping loose. Clean money. Don't investigate. She didn't push further. She'd been thinking about it. Of course she had. A country drowning in $9 billion of debt, treasury permanently empty, and suddenly Chinese companies were fighting to get in. Where was the money coming from? Why was China moving so fast? But she could only confirm one thing. China was willing to give Gamajilo a chance, and I had the ability to grab it. Whatever was behind the curtain could wait. First, keep the people alive. First, pay the debts. First, hold this crumbling country together. She typed back, fine, I won't ask. But when you're in China, buy medicine. Antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, tetanus vaccines, painkillers, and basic wound suture kits. Starting tomorrow, tens of thousands of people will be on construction sites. Most of them are malnourished and have never done heavy labor. If we get mass injuries and infections, the kingdom has zero capacity to handle it. I sat up straighter. Port, roads, power grid, digital systems. I'd mentally covered every big project and completely missed the one thing most likely to kill people. Medical supplies. Brilliant leadership, Yifei. Really nailing it. Buy everything. Send me the full list. Items, quantities, urgency levels. Don't save money on this. The plane left the ground. G-force pressed me into the seat. Through the window, Burad's tin terminal shrank to a gray smudge on the coastline, then disappeared. Half an hour later, we broke through the clouds into smooth cruising. I connected to the jet's satellite Wi-Fi and opened the chat with Anya again. Every time I go back to China, I'm either bumming rides on someone's jet or paying for a charter. Did the kingdom never have its own airline? Her reply came fast. Yes. Gamajila King Air. License still active. ITA code still reserved. A few years ago, they sold every plane to pay debts. No management team, no mechanics, no pilots, no aircraft. I stared at the last line. No aircraft. Then buy some. No crew. Then recruit. The kingdom was about to receive Chinese construction teams, equipment shipments, diplomatic delegations, medical supplies, and eventually needed to send its own people and goods out. I couldn't keep mooching rides on other countries' government planes forever. That's not how a king operates. That's how a broke college student gets to the airport. Restart the airline. Find an international airline management team. Poach a CEO who actually knows what they're doing. This is your project. Anya went quiet for several minutes. Okay, there are some second-hand Boeing 737s and Airbus A320s on the market. About 10 years old, cheap, good for short-haul routes. I'll have people contact sellers. I leaned back and wrinkled my nose. 737s, A320s. Fine for hopping between nearby islands. But Gamajilo wasn't building a budget airline that only flew puddle jumper routes. China, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, eventually Europe, all needed direct service. Wide-body planes could carry passengers normally, haul equipment in emergencies, and handle evacuations or medical transport if things went sideways. The kingdom's first long-range air capability couldn't start with a couple of used narrow-bodies. Second-hand narrow-bodies can come later. First batch, wide-body aircraft. Airbus A350, Boeing 787, 777, all worth discussing. Preferably planes ready for immediate delivery. If delivery queues are too long, ask China Southern if they'll sell a couple of their retired A380s. We could run intercontinental routes. The message went through. The typing indicator at the top of the chat blinked for a very, very long time. Then a voice message appeared. I tapped play without thinking. Anya's voice exploded out of the speaker in flawless, furious gamma at maximum volume. Has your brain been soaking in seawater? One A350 costs $300 million. A single A380 flight burns more fuel than Burad uses in an entire month. Do you have any idea what a 4-engine aircraft costs to operate? Do you understand anything at all? The quiet first-class cabin carried her rage to every corner. I fumbled for the pause button like my phone was a live grenade. Screen went black. Natalie was sitting behind me, spine rigid, right hand already pressed under her skirt hem, instinct kicking in, ready to draw a weapon she wasn't carrying. She didn't speak Gamma, but the fury in that voice message needed no translation. Zhou Jining turned around, embassy prep documents in her arms. What did Princess Anya say? I shoved the phone into my pocket. Professional disagreement. I want to buy planes. She wants to commit murder. Zhou Jining paused. What kind of planes? A few A350s or 787s to start, I added casually. If those don't work out, maybe a couple of retired A380s. Her files nearly slid to the floor. A380s. Yeah. Burad Airport's runway barely meets 4F edge requirements. The taxiways, parking positions, and ground equipment aren't built for A380 operations. And a startup airline maintaining 2 A380s, the parts and upkeep costs alone would give Anya insomnia for the rest of her life. I tapped the armrest. Then we upgrade the airport. Money solves what money can solve. Zhou Jining hugged her papers tighter. Aviation isn't just by plane flies. Traffic rights, crew certification, airworthiness, maintenance contracts, spare parts, ground handling, dispatch, insurance. Miss one and you're grounded. Anya was right to yell at you. I turned my head. Whose side are you on? You're a Chinese diplomat. You're legally required to support China and the legitimate king. I'm on the side that doesn't lose money. She didn't hesitate. From the front row, the sound of a notebook closing. Deputy Minister Hua turned around. Your Majesty is considering restarting Gamajala King Air. Thinking about it, I said, adjusting my two long-sleeve cuffs. More Chinese people and cargo heading to Burad every day. Can't keep borrowing government jets. Long-term charters aren't sustainable either. Hua removed her reading glasses and set them on the tray table. Forget the A380s from China Southern. They've been sitting idle for years, maintenance costs are through the roof, and 4-engine aircraft are wrong for a freshly restarted airline. I didn't argue. She continued. Sichuan Airlines previously ordered 2 Airbus A350-900s. Due to domestic route adjustments, they were preparing to cancel and resell. The planes are already assembled in Toulouse. Ready for delivery. Zhou Jining looked up. Natalie stopped writing. Hua looked at me. If Gamajila genuinely needs to purchase aircraft, China can help coordinate with Sichuan Airlines, Airbus, and the relevant support teams. Delivery slots are negotiable. Crew training, initial spare parts packages, maintenance support, and operations management consulting can all be bundled into the deal. I leaned back into my seat. How much? Hua put her glasses back on. It's a commercial transaction. Pricing follows commercial procedures. I'll help connect you with Sichuan Airlines. She opened her newspaper, then added one more line. But before anyone signs anything, Gamajila needs to present an operating plan proving it can actually sustain 2 A350s. Airbus does have standards for its buyers. 3 days ago, rent was eating me alive. My boss yelled, I smiled. Clients ghosted on payments, I begged politely. Classic corporate slave lifestyle. Then I became a king. Long story. On the plane, a Boeing 747, by the way, because apparently that's just how I travel now. I pitched my big idea to Minister Hua. My kingdom needs an airline, right? We've got 0 pilots, 0 crew, 0 everything. But Sichuan Airlines? They've got too many planes and not enough routes. Match made in aviation heaven. I basically said, let's rent their entire operation, planes, pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, the whole buffet. Minister Hua made one phone call on the secure line. Sichuan Airlines came back swinging. They said, sure, take 2 planes. But also take 4 more we haven't delivered yet. 6 brand new A350s total. Plus 10 flight crews, 15 cabin crews, 100 mechanics, and a pile of management staff. The price tag? My advisor, Jining, nearly choked on her pen doing the math. We're talking billions with a B territory. Minister Hua suggested negotiating down to 2 planes. Very reasonable. Very sensible. I said, we'll take all 6. Everyone in that cabin looked at me like I'd ordered the entire menu at a Michelin restaurant and asked for seconds. But here's my logic. You can buy planes anywhere. Try buying a fully trained team that's ready to fly tomorrow. That's the real treasure. I texted my finance girl Anya the news. She replied with, just dots.